Hi, good morning. Today is January 17th, 2019. We're about to begin our work session. We were scheduled to start at 9, which was an hour early, but we're starting at 9:10. If we can all rise for the pledge. Drew, you want to start us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I see Jody came around the corner.
We're just gonna start the work session first with just an announcement, just to remind everybody that the town-owned property at EPCAL and the recreation path is closed. It started closure on January 7th and will continue to January 31st. It is closed for shotgun hunting for deer program at EPCAL. So please remember to stay off of the EPCAL trail, and we will continue to remind people. There are barricades up, there are signs up, there's flashing signs, so we really appreciate that everybody will stay off of that trail. So we are going to start with our first discussion item, which is Justice Court Police Department discussion. We have our judges here, Alan Smith and Lori Holtz, as well as Chief Hagemiller. We have our engineering department, Drew Dillingham, and Ernesto Rossini, who will be a presentation, so if you would like to come up and join us. And Bill Rothar also.
Oh no, sitting next to me.
I'm sorry.
Jeremy can go.
We're all moving this way.
So I think everybody's well aware, I think it's very common knowledge that the Justice Court and the Police Department are in a building that is quite cramped and in need of more space. So, and this has been an ongoing discussion for many years. So what we have proposed to do is to start off the discussion so that we can figure out how to adjust the situation and improve the services that we're providing to the community. So what we have asked was, I don't know, Drew, are you gonna present, or Ernesto, you will? Okay, sort of what we figured we'd start out with is the space needs of what we have, and some proposals that have already been explored. So, Ernesto, I will turn it over to you. John, you may just need to turn the lights out, so, thank you.
All right. All right, so as the supervisor said, we were charged with the task to prepare a presentation of what we've called the expansion of the main campus. And that is the area of either Town Hall and the Police Department together. It's a little hard to see from that far away, but this gives you a rundown of the square footages of the buildings that are part of the main campus here. So Town Hall, including the basement, is 24,500 square feet. Again, the police department, including its basement, is 16,400 square feet. There were three designs that the town, over the last 10 years or so, has gotten from an engineering firm. One would be the remodeling of the armory. The second is an expansion of Town Hall with an addition of a second story. And then lastly is the police department with a second story as well. So first we'll discuss the armory. Currently it's used only as storage only. It comprises of just about 40,600 square feet. It would need extensive lead and asbestos remediation. The last cost was $3 million for that alone, last estimates. This would require a complete renovation of the building, additional site work in the form of parking, a traffic light, and other drainage work associated with the site. This is an overview of what that proposal from the engineers and architects would be. You see extensive parking lot improvements. This is the same elevation views as is current out there. The 2 floors, so they would comprise of a 2-story building. We're not, at this time, proposing any expansions of the building, even though you saw that on the site plan there. This would be, the first floor would comprise of the police department. Most of its offices would be down here. The garage would be utilized again as storage for vehicles. Like I said, this would be an extensive renovation. The Justice Court would be located in this plan, on the 2nd floor. The rear of the building has what they've called the drill hall, so it's a 2-story part of the building which would be converted I'm sorry, it's 1 story, but it's actually about 25 feet to 30 feet the ceiling height, so we would create a 2nd floor in that location. And the 2nd floor would take care of most of the Justice Court as well as some of the administrative offices of the police department. Like I said, this is 18,253 square feet for the 2nd floor alone. You get about the same on the 1st floor, and a very small area in the basement would be mostly for mechanical and building systems.
So what was the first floor area?
First floor area would be 22,393, and that includes the garage. That's where the additional space.
And it also includes taking the drill space and creating that as 2 new floors, incorporating it
Yes.
into the building, correct?
Yes, the drill area in the back, located in this area here, is right now it's 1 single story. Like I said, about 25 to 30 feet is the ceiling height. So we would cut that into 2 floors, and that would comprise in the 1st floor of the detention area and a fitness room. Here we have locker rooms for the officers. In the back would be vehicle storage, property evidence, and then in that area for the 2nd floor would comprise of the courtroom, the hearing room, offices for the judges and their staff, some administrative offices here for the police department, and a lot of their other administrative offices would be in the front of the building.
And that would provide 2 courtrooms?
Yes, a hearing room, which is this smaller room here in the center of the building, and then a larger courtroom in the more towards the front of the building. That's on the 2nd floor. If you want, I can go into a little more detail about the 1st floor. But more of the operational offices for the police department would be on the 1st floor. So it's dispatching office, an area to greet the public, the central records. A sally port would be built on the east side of the building, and this is the detention area. The locker room is in the back for the officers. Like I said, the fitness and some other offices would be located here. We would convert what's already a garage area. We'd upgrade it and make spaces for the officers to store some vehicles that the police department would have a need to be stored indoors, as well as evidence and property secure lockers.
And how many cars does the police have stored on site? Right here in town?
Gotta be over 30.
So, have you done a comparison as to what the, spaces are that we currently have now at the Justice Court versus what we would be proposing? So that's all.
In the pamphlet that I've
But
given to you.
before
is-
we start that, can we just let Ernesto finish his presentation?
Yeah, and
To ask the question.
Ernesto,
Yeah,
So-
the last-
How long is it gonna take?
how long's it gonna take?
Yeah,
The-
I have
the-
a jury over next door.
Okay, well,
Got
this will be
people
about
parked in the-
15 minutes. So,
Okay.
my-
We'll see you later.
Okay, let's let Ernesto finish, please.
all right, my last slide will go into detail of comparing all 3 properties, costs and spaces. If you want, I could skip to that now.
No, that's okay.
That'll be the last one. So this is our current police department headquarters. It's currently 16,400 square feet. 13,700 of it, including the basement, is solely used for the police department. That leaves the Justice Court at 2,700 square feet.
I was talking more of a comparison of how much office space they have now, how much storage space they have now for file cabinets, what the, courtroom is.
That's the entire,
Right, a breakout.
yeah, I
That
would
was a
say,
more.
out of that, you're probably talking 2,000 square feet of it is for the courtroom itself. The other 700 is either offices or storage, and that's probably being conservative. There's probably less office space than 700 square feet.
Storage room downstairs is very small.
So that's what I would like to see, if you could prepare that for me for a later date.
Okay.
To look at, thank you.
So, we're here today to talk about, obviously, they need more space. The needs of the building is additional parking. We own the lot, the wooded lot that's now in the corner of Brook and Howell. Part of these proposals is to turn that into a parking lot. Another important point to make is that as part of our energy performance contract, the police department is one of the buildings slated for a new roof. So we've put that into phase 2 until we can make a decision of what additions or what type of work we're planning to do at the end of this presentation, as well as lighting upgrades for that building. And like I said, there's 145 spots currently in this entire campus. So this is an overview of what the parking lot situation would be with these expansions. This wouldn't change. You're going to see the same slide again if Town Hall was expanded either. We're going to be adding 62 new spots in this empty lot next to the police department, as well as 27 new spots in the front of this building on Howell. So that'll gain us, overall, the building will change. So the rear of the parking lot, the situation of the amount of spaces back here will change a little slightly. So we're going to overall gain almost 80 parking spots with these 2 parking lots. So this is the basement view of the expansion of the police department. And the overall what's going to happen here is there's going to be a small command center, operations center for emergencies. This is what the architecture firm has proposed, as well as a sally port and prisoner elevator in the rear of the building. So as far as the footprint, that's as large as it's going to get. The first floor would be extensively remodeled. So in this plan, again, Justice Court moves to the 2nd floor and will occupy all of the 2nd floor. So that'll leave the basement space of almost 10,000 square feet for the police department, as well as the first floor, almost 11,000 square feet. So they're gaining a little bit of space. All of the side of Justice Court would become, see if I can zoom in here for you. Let me just zoom in here for you. So the side that occupies Justice Court now would be converted into a training room for the police department, the chief's office, his captain's office, another conference room, and the JAB office would move to this side of the building. So the police department would gain those offices that are currently located on the north side of the building. They would be converted into some additional office space. And the building would receive, obviously, a general renovation as well.
So that would be the 2,700 square feet would be converted over the first floor towards the police department.
Exactly.
So this is first floor, not basement, right?
Yes. We're going to go back to full view, yeah.
So, the basement right now has the holding cells and it has the steep staircase that goes down and that, so are you proposing an elevator to go
Yes.
down to the basement and then first floor, second floor?
Mm-hmm. In this plan, there's going to be 2 elevators. One would be in this small new addition in the rear of the building that would transport the prisoners. That's located back here. And then the general public would have an elevator located in this area of the building to go up to the 2nd floor for the Justice Court. So currently this half of the building is currently used for Justice Court, and that would be completely converted over to offices and training rooms for the police department. And like I said, the rest of the building would receive a general renovation. And now we come to the second floor, and this would be completely devoted now to Justice Court. This would be the criminal courtroom.
How many seats are available in that courtroom?
We could zoom in here and find out. You have a total of 1,675 square feet. So it's roughly, I think, over 100 chairs. Then there would be a second, smaller hearing room located on.
I just wanna ask a question, I'm not understanding a hearing room. I don't understand why you wouldn't have two courtrooms. There's no such thing as a hearing room for the purposes of conducting trials or court appearances, calendar calls. I'm not understanding why you wouldn't have two courtrooms, if it's possible, so that both judges could be working, at the same time.
I think these plans were made up, these plans, what we did was we took plans that were currently done from past years to take a look at and look at them. So that's certainly, basically what you have up here is blank space. You have amount of square footage, that can be, since it's non-existent, can be configured any particular way. Cause what is the total square footage on the second floor?
10,690. So you're pretty much quadrupling the current space of Justice Court, a little
Alright,
less than.
so if we really wanted to have two functioning courtrooms, we could have that.
Yeah,
Alright.
it's just
That
a
sounds
matter
like
of,
that
yeah,
makes
it's just a matter of this, for whatever, I don't know how this was done originally, who was consulted with this, and how they determined what was needed at the time.
Right,
So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, nothing is set in stone. These are just plans that were drawn up.
How old are these plans? That's what I'm wondering.
This one, I believe, is from 2000, either 9 or 5.
Oh.
So they're roughly all about 10 years old. There would be one important note. We'd still have to investigate it, but it seems that the police department was originally built to support a second floor.
Mhm.
So it would require the least amount of structural work out of this building, so town hall or that one. The police department would be an easier fit to put a second story on. Is there any other questions before we move to the last?
There's probably revision dates in the right.
Yeah.
Oh, there were revisions on it?
I can give you an exact date here.
It's 2009, it's pretty long ago.
and do you know when this was created, was there a space needs analysis done for the police department or the justice court? Was that ever?
On
This
this one
was the
there
space
was.
needs
was.
I don't know, I don't remember this one.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is from 2003, these drawings.
I don't remember this one either. Yeah, no.
We dusted off a lot of old stuff because, instead of reinventing
Yeah,
the
no.
wheel, let's see what we
Right.
have for,
Right.
These are we have.
It was
Yeah.
always talked about.
yeah.
Well, we spent, I think, almost $750,000 to put the structural steel in to support a second roof on the police station
Yeah, it was built in 84.
back then.
Okay, Ernesto, go ahead.
Okay, so this is this building here, Town Hall, 200 Howell Avenue. The proposed addition at this building, which we'll see a plan in the next slide over, will encompass this area here. So we're gonna actually lose a little bit of current parking, but we'll make up for that and then some if we were to develop the lot on Brook Street. Another important note here for this building is slated for a new roof, new HVAC system, and lighting upgrade as a part of the second phase of the energy performance contract. We are also in need of a sanitary upgrade in this building and overall building renovations. The building is from 1970 and it's in need of some much needed upgrades. We currently have, again, 145 spots on this campus, and there is 24,500 square feet. That's including the basement.
How much of that is basement?
I was gonna say it's not usable.
It's roughly half,
Okay, so
so
about
about 12,000. almost 13,000 square feet is up
Yeah.
on the first floor.
And, okay,
Why do you say that we need an upgraded sanitary system?
The current ejector pumps in the basement are failing and are in desperate need to be replaced, so that's gonna be something else we'll discuss.
Okay.
This is the current layout of Town Hall. In this proposal, this portion of the building would be removed to make way for for the addition, as well as this small section here, that's currently over in the code enforcement and, town board coordinators area. Again, this is just another same shot as before, just in black and white of the area, the footprint of the building that it would take these proposed additions. The same image as before of the parking lot upgrades that would be done to the entire campus, regardless of which plan we were to take. And now this is the completed town hall. This is the first floor. So what would happen in this plan is that Justice Court would occupy this half of the building. So the area that's currently the tax receiver, the town attorneys, that half of the building would all be turned into a justice
so
court.
this is a third proposal,
This is the third and
Third.
last proposal.
okay.
A 2,000 square foot addition would be put onto the walls that the exterior walls that currently occupy the tax receiver and the town clerk. And that would house the offices for the judge, their clerical staff. Again, there's a small hearing room here, but if these plans don't work, nothing here is obviously set in stone. We would just reconfigure that into something different, and a larger courtroom that's larger than this room, or roughly the same size, if not larger, in comparison. We're not proposing to do anything to this town boardroom as far as changing the size of the space. It would go under a renovation, but no changes to the size of the current room here. Then we would put on the south addition would be an 8,550 square foot addition. So all of this together, the next slide will tally all the totals up. But we would move, in this plan, the proposal is to move the town clerk, the assessor's office. This is a little bit outdated because they still have planning and building in here, but we would just move the offices that were located on the north side of the building to the south side. In this proposal, we would be putting in one elevator, because you'll see there's going to be a second story here in a moment. And the second story in this scenario would be a 9,300 square foot addition. And this would house the town board, the supervisor's office, the council people, their offices. Accounting is coming back here in this proposal, but nothing here is set in stone. This is,
My office.
this plan is from 2009,
Okay.
so.
And so the addition, okay,
Okay, so this sort of summarizes, based on industry standard of $225 a square foot to renovate buildings and $450 a square foot to construct buildings. That's a rough industry estimate. So our current town hall has 24,500 square feet, and our proposal is to add, to bring this up to 32,340 square feet. With the addition of 78 new parking spots, that'll bring our total in this campus to 209. And we're losing some, you'll see in the two comparisons between Town Hall and Police Department, because this building will, in this proposal for the expansion, would occupy some of the parking lot. And that comes in at about $6.4 million in renovation and construction costs. The Police Department and Justice Court is currently 16,400 square feet, and we'd almost essentially double the size of that and bring it up to just over 31,000 square feet.
6,319,000.
We would add
By 8,000.
78 new parking spots and bringing our total here to just a little under 230 spots.
I'm looking at the cost per square foot.
and this price tag is roughly $8.5 million.
I'm looking at the cost per square foot, so it's
And lastly, the armory,
town hall expansion, and the cost is $6,300,000
the renovation costs are $9 million,
per square foot.
and then you add the $3 million was the last estimate for remediation. That brings the cost for the armory proposal to $12 million.
And then the same with the second PD.
Um,
Right up there. This is- we're
And
adding-
that estimate is probably about 5 or 6 years old at least
For the 12 million,
for the
or
12
for
million.
all three of them?
All of them, the $3 million for the asbestos remediation.
I'm sorry, just say, can we just have one conversation?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ernesto.
The asbestos remediation, that quote is 3 to 5 years old.
Okay.
The cost per square foots are all current standard.
Okay, so the 12 million just may have the underestimate for the
Asbestos
remediation.
removal, yeah.
Okay. And then the first town hall expansion, that includes the addition of the 8,500 for the justice court addition to the town hall building with that?
That includes everything that you saw.
Okay, so it encompasses an expansion to the court as well as an expansion to town hall, and police would just stay with the police building staying as it is and
Yeah.
then occupying the whole
And
building?
that's not including any cost associated with leaving the police department there to renovate the building for their complete occupancy either.
Okay, okay.
That cost is excluded from this
Okay.
figure.
Ernesto, what was the total square footage of the justice court with the town hall expansion? Now, you said you were adding 2,000 square feet, but what would be the total?
The total would be, just a little under 8,400 square feet.
I think one of the key things is space. You know, what the needs of the court is at this time for space. You know, how many days do you run court?
Every day,
Every day? And you run one court every day?
correct.
But
We have
what
a
would-
calendar, Monday through Wednesday, we have trials Thursday and Friday. And of course, we have, we work on the weekends for arraignments as well as during the week.
And and you only can work one at a time currently,
Correct.
right? And so the goal is to be able to have two judges working at the same time
Right.
in two separate
Right.
courts.
So a weekly example of that is that drug court comes in at 12:30 on Thursdays. So if I'm conducting a trial, I have to stop the trial, send the jurors out, drug court comes in, they conduct their court, and then I resume again at 2:00.
Okay.
So we're really not efficient in terms of how we're using, our time and the jurors' time and everyone else. So that's a prime example. If we have, a hearing or trial going on and someone's arrested, then we have to stop everything, have everybody leave the courtroom, and then we have to do the arraignment. So 2 courtrooms are,
And do they need to be equal size or,
I mean, if you want them functioning as a courtroom, yes.
and I know you, as far as you were concerned about seating. So generally, you know, what do you see as the seating capacity needed in just in the space of the courtroom?
So right now, if we have a trial where we have a jury panel of about 80 people, we can't fit them in our courtroom.
Okay,
So they're standing outside, they're sitting in the jury box, they're just not able to fit into the courtroom. So we don't have the ability, unless we have a smaller jury panel, which doesn't always work, because if we need
larger
to go through a
case.
couple rounds, or if we have a couple defendants, that's just not gonna work. So, we need double the size at least of what we have now.
so you're really talking, and then you have staff and anybody else that's in there, so you're talking really over 100 to 120 seats for each courtroom, or does that sound reasonable, or is that?
That's reasonable.
Okay.
And that's just the courtroom. The working facilities for our clerks is absolutely abominable. I mean, they're literally on top of each other. They're literally bumping off of each other. There's no space at all, in the clerk's office, which I know that you know.
I know that, yeah.
I just wanna add, aside from us needing to know this information to make these decisions, honestly, before I got the tour by Roberta over there, as someone who lives in the town, before I got in office, I really had no clue what a desperate situation it was. So I think for the taxpayers to hear, the situation over there, it's good, and it would be really great if, I don't know if we could ever show pictures or, just so that people know, just so the taxpayers know. Can you just talk a minute about that room that everybody's in?
The courtroom?
That's actually was pretty shocking to me.
The
Where you have
court-
all the staff.
Oh.
Well,
there-
it's not, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, where the staff is obviously, it's way too small for where they're working. They have files that are as high as the ceiling almost, because we have no storage, we have no place to put the files. the clerks are literally on top of each other. We don't have a separate cashier or a window for a cashier, so one of our clerks goes to the window, that window gets backed up and it gets backed into the hallway where you have attorneys and clients conferencing.
Because there's no space for them, or
Because there's no
separate, or
space.
privacy at all to
Right.
conference with
That's
their
right.
clients.
There's
totally
no space.
adequate, totally.
Plus, if someone comes to the window to make a payment, they're in view of the entire staff, so there's nothing separate about it. So if you have someone who's, you know, arguing with the clerk about paying or what have you, it's disrupting the entire office. The judges, we share a tiny office, which was intended for one person. Roberta was sharing an office with a clerk, which was intended for the other judge's office. The courtroom itself, I know that we've spoken about. Another major problem, and anyone who served as a juror in our courtroom can tell you, we don't have a jury deliberation room. If during the trial the jury needs to step out for legal argument or to move a defendant, they have to stand where the prisoners are kept. So they actually stand in a little tiny hallway area that the police chief can elaborate on, which literally has places to shackle defendants, and they stand there and wait, and it's cold, and there's no seating, it's just very awkward. When the jury has to deliberate, which can sometimes take hours or even days, we can't use our courtroom, because that's where they deliberate. So I literally pick up all of my books from the bench, walk out into my office, and they deliberate in the courtroom. So nobody can go in there, no court, work can be conducted. It's, you know, it's
Not
poor
working.
on so many levels, it's,
Oh, yeah,
you know.
I think for the most part, we're all pretty much aware of
Yeah, I just
why that
don't
court
know
doesn't
if
work.
the
It hasn't worked since.
general public knows.
Right.
Honestly,
We've talked about it a
Yeah.
lot, so I think the
someone
general
told
public
me
isn't.
they were on a jury and they had to stand in the hallway for 45 minutes.
Correct, that's
It's
what
even-
That
happens.
there were people that were having trouble standing.
It's even worse
Right.
than that, it's even worse than that, because you can't have a calendar with 80 defendants on it, with maybe 100 cases, and just going through the magnetometer, you can't fit them in there, they're standing in the hallways, they're standing out on the porch. My whole thing is, I think in Riverhead, we've sorta always tied the police and the courts together, and I sorta like that. That they're somewhat in the same type of facility.
It makes sense.
I think bringing the court over here and separating the police department out, I don't think that's gonna work. For one, I like having a separate facility for the police and whether it's expanding that building or the armory. I always like the armory, cause I think for the general public that has to come do business at town hall, they should come do business at town hall. They shouldn't have to walk through people waiting to see the probation officer or people waiting to
Well, I
deal with a
believe
drug case.
I believe they were separate entrances, the way Ernesto, was that correct? Into the court area, with the expansion for town hall, there was two separate entrances, sort of creating a police and justice court campus. It's more of a campus style.
Well, if you want to connect the two buildings, that would be probably a good plan. If you're gonna connect this building with that building and use that square footage, connecting the two for additional, that might work. But the two separate buildings,
On this plan currently, this is the one you're speaking of? This town
Yes,
hall expansion?
Yes,
It's one communal entrance,
okay.
a public lot, the people
you don't wanna walk past it.
doing business with the court would be on this side of the building. The prisoners are in the back, they're separated, of course.
Well, those are those are waiting for arraignment.
Yeah.
Not those
Well,
coming to
yeah.
court for the
Jail, right.
15th time.
And there's no ability to put a separate entrance as if it was,
These are, nothing here is set in stone,
Right.
so things can be moved. We can put the entrance for Town Hall on Howell Avenue in this,
and just
About a
from a
tunnel.
police perspective, what,
How about a tunnel?
But from a police perspective, what is your feeling about having, whether they're housed in the same building, or they're housed within 10 feet of each other, or whether,
Convenient to be housed in the same building because we deal with prisoner transport.
okay.
So if someone's under arrest in our jail cell, they have to come to the judge for arraignment. If we were in two separate places, then that requires.
But I mean, if it was just across the parking lot there, do
Yeah.
you see that being a
That's-
hindrance, or do you see that
No,
being,
that's why I said
like,
that-
should that be used as a determining factor for?
No, I think that's a short distance, so the person's just walking the prisoner across the way. That's why I just said the tunnel would be ideal, because our jail cells are on the basement or the lower level, whatever you wanna call it. You can tell
Actually,
that
yeah,
over
that's
here.
not a bad.
There
And as
were a
far-
lot of improvements that had to be done to the police department as far as the jail cells and the ADA compliance and
sure.
everything else that,
I mean, we don't have
that
an
probably
elevator
is not
currently, so-
calculated into this number. And in just doing the simple math, for the amount of square footage that we're gonna gain from doing the town hall addition, we're only gonna gain 8,000 square feet. And the cost of that is $800 a square foot, just doing the rough math. The police and justice court, we're gonna be gaining about 1,000 square feet?
No, we're
No,
gaining
I'm sorry.
12,000.
No,
Yeah, because.
oh yeah, 12,000.
Yeah,
11,000 square feet. And that cost would be about $1,000 a square foot to
at
build it.
11,000 square feet?
Yep,
No.
for the dollar
No,
amount that
that's
it's gonna
not
cost.
correct.
No, I had an 8,000 square foot increase, so you're saying.
8,000 square foot
Right,
increase,
so
right,
you're
from
saying it's-
16,400 to 24,000
Bill,
Right.
can you talk
was
louder?
8,000,
They can't hear you.
that's what I had,
So from 16 to 24 is 8,000 square feet, not 11,000 square feet.
right.
So, for
So
the,
that's $1,000 a square foot when it's
$1,000 a square
8.5
foot.
million.
And the armory for 40,000 square feet of new space would be about $550 a square foot. And that's
well, it's
based,
not, it's 40,000 square feet, but we still have these other buildings here.
Yeah, that's my school of thought, and you know what, you keep looking at the price tag for the Armory, and all those numbers you can put 20% on, cause that's just the way it is.
Right.
They never hold true.
They're dated too.
Right,
They're
and they're
dated,
dated, and although some of the materials are much cheaper now, but my school of thought is this, we're talking about the price of doing the Armory, and if we're looking at this as a price factor, doing the Armory and moving that court and the police out of here, and I realize there's other logistics that, you know, with traffic and all that, we'll deal with that, but that frees up this building next door.
Town Hall West.
Town Hall West, even Shade Tree Lane, you're looking, now we're taking assets that this town has all over the town, whether it's Pulaski Street, even Shade Tree Lane, those are buildings that can go for sale. I mean, that's something that we could, and really.
I don't think we
that's
could
a-
incorporate,
I
how
bet
many
you can.
square feet was the senior center? That's a fairly large building,
Yeah, but.
and a lot of parking there also. That's a
That
big,
is a big
Where would B and G go?
yeah, that would be the problem, cause B and
Well,
G
B&G
needs the
well, B-
overhead
right,
doors
well,
and the
you'd have to-
storage.
Right, you'd have to sell the front building, the B and G would have to be kept in the back, you know, cause that's just convenient that way.
go ahead, Ernesto.
There's one figure that I had incorrect on that, cost sheet. The total addition here at Town Hall, excluding the basement, would be 32,000 square feet. I've neglected to include the square footage for the basement, so that figure for here is over 44,000 square feet.
So it's even more than what the armory would expand to.
I did make a mistake on that, I
You
did not.
can't use the basement here for.
Well, the
anything.
Well,
basement,
I'm just giving an example, all of these figures are all the total square footage for each of the buildings, to be fair,
and the armory included how much in their basement?
very little.
Okay.
Nothing would really be, there's not really a basement there, currently there's a shooting range.
Yeah.
That would be, cleaned up and
Mechanical.
just put mechanicals down there, there'd be no,
You don't need a basement.
nothing there for the
The
basement.
only thing is there is a fair amount of storage with the court that could be contained in our basement. You know, if it was done correctly with,
No, I'll give you that.
Well, obviously, we would be working on the basement here.
Yes, that would be
It
part of
needs
the plan,
repair,
is
it
to,
needs work, 'cause it,
there needs to be extensive waterproofing in this basement.
But it's the water table, that's the problem, so you're really not gonna get away from the water table when it comes to the basement, even if you waterproof it, eventually the waterproofing is gonna,
What comes up in the
Well,
water?
they have
Compromise.
the same problem across the street with Lupton and Luce,
yeah,
and they have sump pumps all around the
Yeah.
perimeter, and they have no problems. So we would do the same thing.
right.
so they were
But-
able to mitigate it.
yes.
So,
Where do they pump it to?
I always thought about the armory for the YMCA. I had requested of the town board last year that we put out an RFQ for the parking lot that we own across from the Supreme Court building, where a developer could come in and build it, and he could build 5 stories, 6 stories, 7 stories, that's what, you know, Catherine was kinda talking about over in that area by the courts and the Supreme Court, making the heights higher over there, and letting a developer build it for us, and either leasing it back, long-term lease, with the option to purchase at the end of the long-term lease, and building police and justice court on the first floor, it could be 40,000 square feet. Town hall on the second floor, 40,000 square feet, and they could build parking on the third and fourth and fifth floor, and then offices on the sixth floor, or apartments on the sixth and seventh floor, whatever they chose to do. And I think that RFQ is still something that the town board should look at and put out, just to get ideas on what the numbers are. Doesn't hurt to put it out, number one. Number two, I always said that if the the town ever went into contract to sell the Epcal property, as we are coming off the landfill debt every single year by, close to $1 million a year it was last year. I know this year it's not as much, but going forward, we're gonna be coming off the landfill debt, and that the cost to convert the armory would not add any additional burden onto the taxpayers. It would be covered by the debt that we're coming off of. And if we did close EPCAL, the fact that we can't keep more than 15%, or our policy is that we don't keep more than 15% of our budget in fund balance, that if the sale were to go through for 40 million, 15 million would go into the bank. We would use some of that money to pay off the landfill debt, which would actually relinquish our indebtedness even further. So those are all calculations that I would like to see, Bill, as to the forecast for us coming off the bond indebtedness, if we were to sell EPCAL for 40 million and pay off some of the debt for the landfill and refinance, and then what our bond indebtedness would be moving forward if we decided to renovate the armory, or renovate town hall, or renovate the justice
Well,
court.
I think the discussion item isn't so much that. We realize that everybody has their wish list for the 40 million and the community benefit fund, all that stuff coming in. I get it. I mean, we all have a wish list for that, state tax stabilization, all of that. But the discussion item now is where this board feels is best to move this court situation. But I'm looking not an immediate fix, I'm looking for something, and the court, believe it or not, is outgrown. The police department was outgrown 10 years after we moved in 86, by 96 we were changing walls and everything else, so we've outgrown that the minute we moved into it. And the court's always been inadequate, there's no doubt about it. So the end game is, what can we do to address their needs now, and looking to the future, you're only gonna get, I hate to say it, maybe busier.
Right.
So, we have to almost overthink it to the point we have to build something bigger.
I think we need to pull it back even further. I think the first thing we need to figure out is, when we're looking at these spaces, what is the actual space need that we have, and what is our space need projected over the 20 years of the life of this building?
That's in here.
Do we need, 10,000 square feet? Do we need 20,000 square feet? Do we need 30,000 square feet additional? Because I think that has a direct correlation to the expenditure that we're going to
Right.
ask the taxpayers to pay. Because no matter where it comes out of the budget, it is still an expense that has to be paid.
Right.
And I think we need to be prudent
Right.
in that expense to incur the cost that we need to provide the services that we need to provide.
No doubt about it.
And so I think
the
that
taxpayers
is,
are willing to,
that is one of the
invest in their town now.
important issues. And as we see, just from some of the plans that we have already, that really what we have in the plans has not incorporated necessarily the physical needs of what the police department is asking for and what the court is asking for. Even space-wise as far as seats
I mean,
go.
superficially, I haven't delved, I mean, I know all the court's issues, believe me, I was a court officer there for, believe me, I remember, but my first thing that I feel is, I really don't want to undertake that additional parking lot on the north. I realize it's convenient, but there's a flooding problem over there that used to be called Brook Street, because there is water that runs there, there is a water table that comes up when it rains. It might be enough to alleviate some of the traffic or some of the parking, most of the police vehicles over at the Justice Court, but I think in the long term, we're gonna end up vacating that building for that purposes, and then we're gonna have a parking lot that's not gonna be used, so
I don't know that that's the case,
I don't mind-
if we
I
could
don't
ask
mind the one in front of here,
from our engineers, that piece of property over there, do you feel that if that were to be built on, that would develop a flooding issue? Do you think we're just, trying to utilize something that would just cause problems?
Well, we would obviously take measures to address any flooding that would come there.
Definitely low.
Our parking lot, estimate and initial design is including a drainage system to account for any rainwater that would come into the parking lot to
So-
current standards.
Okay.
So when we did this study 5 years ago, there was extensive meetings at the Justice Court with the police department on a weekly basis for several months, evaluating what the needs of the police department and the Justice Court were. So all of that is in this report
I'm still
of
trying.
what they need.
I'm still trying to figure out square footage, though. do you know where the square footage the needs square footage is
We
in
could probably
here?
get the worksheets of the
From-
engineer,
right.
and you probably have them also, as to what was needed for a courtroom, square footage, or,
And has anything changed in the past 5 years? I know that we do weekend court, and, has the increased volume
Yeah,
has
the volume
increased?
has increased substantially, I mean, Jim mentioned 100 cases a day. I haven't seen 100 cases a day since I've been there. It's 168, 170, 175 cases a day. The volume is tremendous. We have 2 judges where in other jurisdictions, with the volume that we're seeing, you would have 3 or 4 judges sitting, and that's an easy comparison to make if you look around at the neighboring jurisdictions. We now do the adolescent offender arraignments, Southampton does and Riverhead does, so that's a whole nother problem because. Right, we handle the whole East End, so anyone from, East Hampton, Shelter Island, where they're coming to Riverhead for arraignments, the adolescent offenders have to be handled in a different manner than other prisoners do. The volume is extraordinary, so.
And how do you think that's changed over say the past 5 or 6 years? Do we have any numbers from?
We can get numbers if
Okay.
you like.
Yeah.
you weren't here when
Right.
this was done, and when the meetings were occurring between the architect and the engineers and the police department and the justice court. So based on, your needs from what you're telling me today, with 168 cases a day, if you had 2 courtrooms operating, and that's 80 cases a day per courtroom,
Right.
which is a lot more manageable, and there's room for growth if needed
And between the
also.
time of this study and today, there's been litigation that's resulted in certain requirements that are now in place where,
Right. More
I'm sure
restrictive.
you're all aware of, where there has to be adequate conference rooms between clients and their attorneys. So there's OCA considerations as well that are more current than what this is, so. you have
And-
to take that into consideration.
And I'm just wondering if the estimates from our engineers, if the estimates for next year or for next door and for the second floor, if that is bringing the entire building up to the current code as far as the requirements for the justice court and the police station, for current requirements that are on the books as recently as 5 years ago.
Yeah, how we came to the figures, we figured on 60%, 2/3 of the building needed a full remodel. That's how we came up with these figures.
But the entire building would have to be brought up to current town code, if you're doing more than an expansion of that.
Well, we estimated that 2/3 of the buildings would require an extensive amount of renovations. We're not talking minor thing, a full gut and renovation. So that's the figure, what we used, the factor, to come up with the figure.
I would kind of like to see, exactly what the square footage figure is that we need for the justice court, the exact square footage that's needed for the police department, and the square footage that's needed for town hall, that will carry us through, really, if it would be bonded, we're talking 20 years.
Yeah, let's set us up for 2040.
So, I would really like to see, because I think that is really going to impact our decision. I think that maybe if you guys could sit with the judges, and just kind of go over space needs, because I think if we take the location out of the equation, just to start, and we have an idea of what our space needs are, I think it makes it a lot easier
easier to
to
fit.
make determinations on what is the best,
I mean, the
Fit.
number of cases increasing every year, right?
It has been, yeah.
So
that's a
should
pretty
we
big
You say
plan for a
168,
third
but
court?
that's multiple
just giving you a
dockets
number
too.
from what I had
Body-wise,
last
it's about
week.
100 people.
well,
So-
we can
Over
analyze
20
this.
years, should we plan for a new
I
court,
can't count
or 3
multiple.
courts?
I know there's multiple
I don't know
dockets.
with the population, if
I
it's
think we-
increasing,
Yeah.
Yes.
remaining constant, so
Sure.
there you go.
But I
And
think
then
we
there's
can
also been-
review some of the other towns also,
Right.
we have some comparable towns by us, that we know their size, and we know some that are just
Nobody works harder than Riverhead.
a little bit, correct?
I'm telling you, I've been to the other courts,
But what are they doing for their space right now, and is it working for them? I think we need to do a little bit of that.
We've also had some recommendations from when there's been audits done, in terms of how the actual, court clerks are working with the
Yeah, there's no
public.
doubt that you need
So
more
then
space.
can you share
But-
that?
But back to what I had originally requested is, what is the office space in the justice court right now? What is proposed for town hall? What is the office space in justice court? What is proposed for, the police and justice court, second floor addition and basement? What is, the armory, the space that would be allocated to the justice court? So that's what we need to see, is where are we gonna get the biggest bang for the buck, and what's gonna cost the least amount of money in the long run? So,
So if you could just make the numbers that you put out there in a little bit of an easier comparison chart, cause I know that you have a lot of the numbers there, but just so that you can look at it side by side might be a little bit, better.
Absolutely, I will, tabulate as close to comparing apples to apples as possible for all three scenarios and all three current buildings.
And if we could take the basements and just leave that as an aside, if we're using that for storage, and just use that for storage except for the current, the current police department.
And I think it's a great idea for the judges to sit down with the
Absolutely.
engineers.
I think it's
Would you like to
awesome.
join us?
And
Would you like to
this
join us?
is actually, I mean, to me, this is already 5 years old.
That's why we updated it with the first
And-
page.
Yeah, that was just done last year, right? That first page,
Yeah, it's current, I
Well, it
think.
says 2014 on the front.
December 19th, 2018.
Cover
Read
page,
the
you
update.
guys, pages in, is it cost?
So we're just going over, we went over the three plans that have been, done in recent years, and just reviewed those. We've asked engineering to come back, to the two of you and just discuss space needs. We're not discussing location at this point, we're just discussing space needs from what what current space needs were, and just to project out over the next, I would say, 10, 20 years, for
There's
the
an
current space.
exhibit in there.
Do you know which exhibit it is?
The chief, Councilwoman
Well, that's
Giglio.
what I said before you came, is that there were several interviews between the architects and the engineers and the police department and the justice on a weekly basis for several months before this plan was created.
Exhibit 5 was a needs analysis.
Go ahead, Jackie.
This printout, I don't think gets it all, but I've delivered to the supervisor's office in the past.
It's actually,
This,
It's all cut off,
yeah,
by
it's
the
hard
way.
to read.
well, we'll get you another,
Okay.
if you can't find yours, we'll make you another one.
Well, I think the whole, to share with the whole board, I think would be good.
Whatever you wish. If anything, the needs assessment has gone up. That was done with a great deal of effort, with multiple meetings.
And what year was this one done?
The initial work was 2014, I believe.
All of these space requirements were from 14 for exhibit 5?
So
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
about,
Okay.
so it's about 3.5 years old,
Correct. If anything,
almost 4 years old.
needs have gone up.
Right.
One of the needs have gone up.
Understandable, and that's why we've kind of liked you to sit with engineering and just review some of those needs, so that as we're discussing the needs of new facilities, that we have current numbers, because this is really, depending on if this came out in 14, probably, 13, 14, and we're heading into 19. And we realize that the
Please.
needs have increased.
Please remember, this is a public safety building with courtrooms in it. Probably a full 3/4 of this building is for the needs of the police department, not the courts. You now have, 87 sworn police officers, 88, attempting to operate a modern police force in the same square footage as a small house in the town of Riverhead. For instance, I don't think that you could get the holding area in the basement approved by the Bureau of Prisons of the state of New York. At the moment, if somebody inspected it, they may be out of business with the holding cells. JAB is, you're dangerously mixing in juveniles with criminals. I just filled up the halls over there with jurors, and thank God we didn't have to move the prisoner. Because if we did, we have to march them through the jury panel. That building has not worked for a long time. For instance, the dangerous condition of no sally port. You're taking violent people in stressful situations, and it's unsafe. But again, it's a public safety building with some courtrooms in it. The real need in this community is for a proper public safety building for law enforcement in our community.
And we appreciate that, and we appreciate you sharing that with us, but I think as we talk about this, we wanna talk about the square footage and accurate square footage. If we have this here and as we try to move forward with plans, if this square footage would not meet our needs at this point, I think that, you know, as we discuss this, we need to know what the square footage is to be able to accommodate it, as we move forward. So you know, we're asking for you to sit down with engineering to review the square footage of needs so that we can continue to move this process forward.
We're starting at such a low level that any improvement would be better for the police and for the courts. I will do this because you asked us to do it, but quite frankly, we've done it before, spent a lot of time. Town board voted to hire these architects. They were the best in the business. They're not some civil servant. Mm-hmm. They have built courthouses and police stations in the past. We did a lot of work and a lot of time with a lot of people to get that needs assessment done. And I'm not sure why we need another one.
Well, I think just sharing the information with the engineers, because they were not a part of this. So just sharing the information.
As a suggestion, why don't they
agree
reach
with
out
you.
to Mr. Giacalone, meet with him, and review it, engineer to engineer.
I think that's a great idea.
But I also think that as the court officers, you need to have some input. You are there on a daily basis, you know, we know that there is a plan in place already that you've seen, and you know even now that this going into the future may not be adequate. So we need to have an accurate picture of where our expansion how much we need to expand. So this is what we're asking,
That work was done with 2019 in mind. The town has, for years, been on the cheap and built just a little here or a little there or a used building there or something else. The idea of doing this needs assessment was so that the facility would be designed and built for like the next 20 or 30 years.
Now,
So the answer to your question is, I'll stand by those numbers.
okay, so you don't want to sit down with engineering to discuss possible needs?
I will sit down with engineering, but I don't wish to waste my time.
Well, that is up to you. We will have our engineering department reach out to you if you'd like to meet with them. We're gonna continue to move forward. Have you guys ever received this report?
No, this is the first time I've seen this.
Okay, if you guys could take a look through this. Also, if you could share the audit reports, about space needs, and any other concerns that you guys have with engineering. And I'd like to continue scheduling this as our work sessions as we move forward. I know you guys are very busy. You can either attend the meetings if you like. We can tell you what we're discussing. We can send you a copy. You can comment on it to continue moving this conversation forward.
Would you do this? Would you please, if these folks don't know what they're talking about, and this is new to them, I don't know how that can be, but have them get in touch with Mr. Giacalone, meet, review the process, the needs assessment. I heard some stuff about asbestos and costs and all the rest of that. It's in there. It's priced in there. It's not the number that somebody spit out before.
Alan, you know, we're kinda just pulling it back a little bit. The first thing we need to know, because there are 3 plans that have been done, and I think for the board, we need to just know space requirements to begin with. That is square one for us to start, and that's what we're trying to do. So we're just looking, all we're looking to do is confirm these space requirements for now, and that they will carry us over to the next 10 to 20 years, that these space requirements will carry. That is step one, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we've asked everyone to come to start this process moving forward. I know that.
Again.
If I could interject a minute.
Understood,
I'd like
yeah.
to just interject. I mean, obviously, this is really long overdue, and we're absolutely looking to move on this. This has to be done. I mean, I said before, I've said it in work sessions before, I really didn't understand the problem, but this moved way up to the top of my priority list, and I know it is for everybody. So I think we've got some good ideas here for you guys to sit down. We have to get it right, though. I mean, we have to get it right, and we do have to look long-term.
Well, the
We
most
wanna
important
move
thing
on
for
it.
us is that it needs to be done. It
Correct.
can't just be
Right. I'm
discussion,
saying number
and
one-
then put on the side, back burner.
Exactly.
It's long overdue, and it
Right.
is a security issue.
Right, and
It's
that-
not just a want, it's a
Right.
security concern.
No,
So
and
I
that's my,
100%
that's
agree
my
with you.
main
We
point.
need to move it forward.
When I saw what is happening over there, I was shocked. So this has to be number one, we wanna move on this, but we do also have to get it right, and we have to look long-term. So we've got some great ideas here for you guys to sit down with engineers, and, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the person that needs to talk with the,
Giacomo.
yes, and that's a great idea, so.
You have to
and-
understand,
so-
I'm not an architect, nor am I an engineer.
Yeah, but you
Okay.
work there, and
Wait a
you
minute.
know, if I was a teacher
There-
and they were building a new school, they would be taking feedback from me, because
They
they would know my
but
needs.
let's use that example. You would open the Commissioner of Education's regs, and you would look at the regulations for a school, elementary, senior high, whatever it is, okay? That's why you have to have the engineer and the architect who build these things. And they've built them for the county of Suffolk, they've built them throughout the downstate region, and they know what they're doing.
And we're not
Right,
negating
right,
that, all
right.
of that comes into play,
I
all
will,
of that
I
comes
will
in.
tell you that we're crowded, that we're moving prisoners in and amongst jurors, that, you couldn't hire another staff member because they'd have to sit in somebody's lap. You know, but you're spending real money, and you're going to need an architect, engineer with experience in this stuff, and you got one. I would suggest that the engineering folks speak to them, and I'll meet with them, afterwards, after your people get up to speed with Mr. Giacalone.
Well, we're actually all on the same page.
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
just one
We're in
project,
agreement
though,
here.
right? Because
And
we have three proposals on the table right now.
Okay, the joining of the two buildings
one.
was done. There are drawings for it
Yep, we just went
by,
through those.
have that.
by H2M.
We have that.
The cost in that point in time was about $6 million. This place is built on a swamp. Water level is such that when you installed the propane gas tank out there the other day, you had to put anchors on it so that when the rain fell, that it didn't pop up out of the ground. I lived here for 4 years with muskrats in the basement, and there's a reason that you don't have anybody down there now. It was because of the mold. This was a bohack. It had additions onto it. We've had the floors break over on that side of the building, we had the floors break over here. You're putting lipstick on a pig.
Well, that's why we're not engineers, as you said, and we're not architects, and that's why I think we need to figure out what our space requirements are as step one, because as Catherine said, and Jody says, I think that we are all here because we are committed to moving this forward. And, you know, part of moving something forward and having people committed to it is to have the discussion about what's going on, and that, so that everybody can be heard to move this project forward. So I think that, you know, we're all committed to this project, and we will continue to keep moving it forward.
This is the first year we have a balanced budget.
Thank you.
After 10 years of working on it and underspending the budget and being very conservative on our tax increases, this is the first year that we have a balanced budget. The town is in a much better financial situation, especially with the pending contract for EPCAL, that the auditors are coming back and they're saying that our financial placement is much better nowadays. But I would also like the engineers to consider the redundancy, so the operation of the police department and the justice court, if you were to put a second floor on that building next door, where they would go and what the cost would be allocated to that. And the same thing with this town hall. If something were to be done, the operations that currently exist, whether they would continue as they exist, or whether there would have to be adjustments that would have to be made.
And I'm gonna say again, I see that this is a crisis situation. I don't wanna wait until something terrible happens to say, oh, now we have to fix this. And I know that all my council mates feel the same, so we fully intend to move forward with this. but we do have to get it right.
And I think that this is a commitment by the community, you know, I think it's a commitment by the community to be able to provide the services that the town's required to provide. And I think being able to do this at a work session so the community is aware of the need to do this and to move it forward and have it be a priority in town, I think is also very, very important to helping this project go forward and go forward in a manner that continues to head in that direction,
Well,
so.
and I think the community and the taxpayers need to know and have a right to know why it is such a desperate situation, and you brought up some of the key facts today, and, it would also be great sometimes if they could see some pictures, some photos, and some visuals of the space that people are trying to work in, or the, you know.
You can come in and video it, put it on your Twitter feed, do
Right.
whatever you need to do,
Come
we can
down
get
and
it out
pay a
there.
ticket.
Yeah.
Let's
Feel
figure
free to
out-
visit
I've been pretty
us.
good about getting tickets, cause I
Let's
have
figure out what we're doing first, but also the asbestos remediation over at the Armory, I know that Senator Laval had indicated in the past that there would be money available for the asbestos remediation in the basement, which would offset some of the costs.
I met with him the other day, and I brought that back up to him again, I have not gotten any feedback, whether there is, funding to do that at this point. We'll continue to pursue this for funding for, you know, to offset the cost of this project, absolutely.
Sure.
So we thank you guys for
Thank
coming.
you.
You have a great day.
Appreciate it,
Thank
thank you.
Thank your staff for working under those conditions.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Drew and Ernesto, thank you very
And
much
thank
for
you
the
guys for your work.
presentation.
Are these, Jim's?
Yes,
Yeah.
just leave them there. He'll be back.
Okay.
All right, next up, if everybody's here, we will move on to the special permit for 48 Cromer Avenue. Is, yeah, please. Is Jim coming back?
I don't think so.
Well, I need to,
Yes.
I'm on the work session agenda to add this, because this is, according to the DEC requirements, and it's something, this paragraph sums it up. But,
What is this?
we have to separate the yard waste from the household waste. So the quarter is going to add another day for yard waste to be picked up, and that schedule is attached. But I need to take it off the floor, cause we need to act right away, so that people stop mixing yard waste with the, household waste. So I just wanna get,
Who wrote this up?
Anne Marie and I have been working on it over the yesterday and today. So I finally just made
So-
some last minute revisions.
So
and-
you wanna hold a special?
No, I just want to,
We can't do that.
I just wanna amend the work session agenda to discuss it.
Oh, okay, yeah, and Anne Marie knows?
Marty, pull that one down.
Okay.
Yeah, we need one more. Hi, Karen. Karen, you can get your Karen? Yeah. How are you?
And-
Karen, come over
So-
this way.
But Anne Marie knows, they don't need to say.
Marty, hey, you wanna sit in the middle, Marty?
Yeah, I'll sit.
Marty's gonna. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, you can sit in the middle.
No, you sit in the middle.
You guys don't fight over who gets to sit in the middle now.
Middle's a hot seat, yeah, we'll do that.
We have the staff reports. Do you, Karen, get the staff report? Or you need
This is.
For the record, I like the
Jody
town
just
hall
wants to
plan
add
the
that to
best.
the work
Yeah,
session,
I can
with
imagine why
just,
you
I
would.
guess Anne Marie would just double check.
Logo on that plan, right?
One more on the press in the back.
Hi, Anne Marie.
Hi, how are
Pretty
you,
big
Bob?
deal.
How are you? Nice
Hi.
to see you.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
Nice to see you.
How's Tim
Thank
doing?
you. Is this one on?
He got hurt? Tim up?
Oh, I don't, I put a call into this wife last night, I haven't heard back from her yet, but I'll keep that quiet.
Oh.
Just waiting for Catherine to come back.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we do film this, it's on, our local channel live, so if you guys could introduce yourselves, you wanna?
Ray Dirkhoff, I'm here with 48 Chroma LLC.
Martin Senlowski, architect. Robert Marion, 40 Waller, the applicant.
We know you guys. If we just wait 1 second, Catherine.
So what is everybody's involvement? Are you an owner of this, or you're,
I'm the developer.
okay, and Marty, you're the architect, or you're the owner?
Architect.
Okay, cause I'm probably going to be seeking an ethics opinion as to whether or not I should be voting on this, the fact that two of my partners are involved in this application, So I will just sit in and listen and not.
But you're a different LLC, or a different
Yeah,
corporation?
we're totally different in the, I mean, but there is a financial benefit to them, but none to me, so I just wanna run it by the ethics board. I don't think that there'll be a conflict, but I just wanted to disclose that, and I will listen to the presentation.
Okay, so you're not participating, but you're
I'll listen.
listening, okay.
Just as Catherine has with, projects that she's recused herself on, but she sat in on the discussions.
Okay, who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, this is, 48 Cromer LLC. They submitted a special permit application for a propane distribution facility with a 2,304 square foot building for office industrial use on a parcel where a, 37,284 two-story building with, 27,927 square feet of the use would be industrial on the first floor, and a partial second floor of 9,357
And it's
square
currently
feet for
zoned?
office use. It's, industrial A.
Industrial, okay.
The special permit application that was submitted most recently under the proposed use of the site was a liquid propane storage.
You have to talk louder, they can't hear you.
We're gonna give you a mic.
Yeah, I need a mic. Lists a liquid propane storage and distribution facility and a leased industrial facility. The current condition of the site is listed as dilapidated with industrial and storage uses, with 7,309 square feet to be demolished. The square footage of the new building area is listed as 29,779 square feet, but the conceptual plan shows that the square footage sums to 39,588 square feet for all the buildings. Under staging, the application had listed that the first stage would be distribution and the second phase would be the rail access. I just want to kind of say that there was some discrepancies about phasing. The site plan had indicated propane use industrial building and then rail spur as the third phase.
Okay, so is it a two-phase? So,
Well, I
okay.
reached out to, I reached out to Marty about it, and his most recent comment that there was going to be no phasing.
So everything would be built as one?
Yes. Is
Yeah,
that
it
the
was
case?
really, we have it as, originally we were thinking of stages, we were gonna start on the LP and then continue right to the other side, so it was really not, it was more, how we were gonna carry out the project as opposed to a phasing per se.
Okay. So the proposed project is to be built
Well, that's,
in
Complete.
totality?
It'll be completely built at one time. No, there'll be no phasing.
so we really should get another new application saying that it's not listing any phases. if
Phases,
that's the
okay.
case. So the, previous EAF had indicated there would be 30,000 gallon above ground liquid propane tanks and two 2,000 gallon underground liquid propane tanks for a total of 274,000 gallons of propane storage, which matches all the plans submitted. The latest EAF doesn't describe the capacity of the storage and indicates 150,000 gallons per month will be stored. So,
Can you explain that?
what's that?
Say that again?
Okay, originally, the previous EAF had indicated we're gonna have 9 30,000 gallon propane tanks.
Okay.
Okay, and two 2,000 gallon underground liquid propane tanks. So that would be totaling 274,000 gallons of propane storage.
Mm-hmm.
And that matches
The plan.
the conceptual, special permit plan and the site plan. The latest EAF doesn't describe the capacity of the storage. It just says that 150,000 gallons will be stored per month. So,
There's the difference between tank capacity and the anticipated usage per month. So the tanks are filled and drawn upon, there's always a reserve, but the estimated usage is 50,000 gallons per month.
was 150.
So you're never going to have the exact usage per month of your entire tanks. If the usage goes up, it would have more capacity. You know, if we get a storm and there's a situation where, you know, power's out or whatever, and people need LP gas, there'd be, you know, surges and different times of year, you had to use more gas. So, it's really just capacity versus monthly usage. They're two different numbers.
Is the capacity versus the monthly usage, there's that much a discrepancy usually between the two, or is there a variation between that? I mean, would this 150 gallons per month be somewhere more like 225? I mean, isn't that based on your business model?
The 150 is what we're moving a month.
Currently?
Right.
But you have capacity, you have the capacity to move 274 per month, correct?
Absolutely.
And
Okay,
then-
that's what I wanna know.
Oh,
So,
capacity
okay.
hasn't changed.
So your capacity is the amount that you
same?
actually could move per month if you, is any increase in
The
business,
most recent
150 is
EAF
current.
didn't
That's
list
what I want.
anything about capacity, but what's shown on the plans matches the previous one.
Okay,
So, okay, so the, according to the application, the 2,304 square foot building on the southern part of the site, which is here, is proposed, that building is 2,304 square feet and will include office and industrial uses. The proposed industrial tenant building to the north, will have, again, 27,927 square feet on the first floor and 9,357
That's this
square feet on the second floor. Yes, it's a partial second floor. Non-specified industrial uses are proposed on the first floor with office uses on the partial second floor.
so the 27,000 square feet is proposed for what use?
Industrial non-specified at this point.
So do you guys have any specifications, what you might be doing there?
There'd be,
For contractors, for one, contractor bays, any permitted use that's tenant space. It's designed,
It's broken up tenant space or one full tenant you're gonna keep it as one, like the 27, you're not breaking up, you're not looking to break up the tenant space?
No, there's 18 partitions,
Okay,
partition spaces
okay,
with, overhead doors either to the front or the rear, for access.
okay.
So in addition to the propane storage, there's two 2,000 gallon fuel tanks, fuel unspecified. One is shown here, and one is shown here. So we'll get into that a little more later.
actually, I could define that. What happened was the owner was originally gonna utilize those two tanks for the, industrial building, but he doesn't want, but instead, since we have natural gas to that building, we'd rather meter it through PSE&G, so those two tanks are gonna be omitted in their entirety. They were gonna be utilized for heating of the industrial building, they're going to be removed in their entirety.
Even the one on the propane site?
One.
You're talking about the propane tanks, Marty, correct?
buried tanks.
No, the two buried tanks on
Okay.
the two buried tanks are
So
No, I
those are
don't.
gonna be removed?
correct.
What is the date on that site plan?
This is the conceptual plan, I also have a site plan, which I referred to also for my report. This one's dated, June 25th of 2018.
Okay.
So these were fueled? Fuel?
The two propane tanks Marty's
Okay.
saying are gonna be used for heating the
Okay.
building, those are to be removed.
For
But there's
gas.
also two 2,000 gallon, they appear to be above ground?
Those are
tanks?
above ground, those are fuel for vehicles,
And what's this one here then?
that's same, fuel for vehicles.
Okay,
that-
but those are
that'll be-
staying?
Those are step,
Oh.
Okay, okay, I was
Gas-
getting confused, okay.
Gasoline, Marty, I take it?
diesel.
Diesel fuel.
yeah.
Diesel? Okay.
And is that for the public, or is that
No,
for,
just for the vehicles.
so for the entity who's gonna be occupying the
correct.
premises, it's for their vehicles
Personal use
exclusively?
is correct.
Okay.
Not it's not for resale or anything, it's for the owner's, vehicles.
Okay, so basically, the special permit, it has been determined a special permit is needed for the propane use. And since there's gonna be two uses on the property, they both have to be considered. So, one of the things I had indicated on the uses, that the plan should indicate which office uses are accessory to the propane facility and the industrial uses on the site. I believe at one of the pre-submission meetings, it was indicated that, some of this industrial space in the tenant building might be used for the propane facility. Is that the case, or?
The propane facility is a tenant to 48 Chroma LLC, they pay rent, and they might take, well, they will be taking office space.
But,
To
and
run
no
their
no
business.
bays in the larger in the
They're not
storage?
gonna have bays in the large building, but they might have a secretary, or, you know, they're gonna have office space on that large building.
Okay, so, the only reason I bring that up is, you know, it's going to be built out as two separate facilities, and they're large enough that it could be potentially subdivided in the future, so you don't wanna sever the accessory use to the propane facility by a subdivision.
So, okay,
So, the town board might want to indicate that there can't be a subdivision if, you know.
if there's an accessory use over in the other storage area.
Right, exactly.
But,
the only-
well, hold,
yeah, the only-
excuse me, on that, I mean, the secretary for the propane use could have an office 20 miles away, I don't see why that would be an issue at this time. If LIPW was the name of that company, if the propane use rents office space from 48 Cromer, and they have an office space on the second floor of that building, why would that have anything whatsoever to do?
They could
With
rent
future
out.
Well,
subdivisions.
because office space in the industrial A is accessory
Accessory,
to
you
the
can't have
principal
office
use.
space.
So, that's fine if it's all one parcel, but if you split the parcel, that accessory office space is not accessory to the
So-
uses in this building.
If the property was ever split, then that person couldn't rent that office space, they would have to move over and onto the other property?
Well, it couldn't be accessory to what's here, so it wouldn't be there.
But wouldn't that be addressed if they ever came back in for a subdivision?
I'm just bringing it up as a potential issue the board might want to, you know, include as a covenant. So that's my only concern.
Cause they wouldn't be able to subdivide the property unless they came back into planning, and then planning would say, okay, well, you have to move your offices over here on this parcel if the propane tanks are there. I don't know how it's applicable to the special permit application, but please continue.
Yep, we're just bringing it to your attention.
Okay.
Okay, where was I?
You're down, I think, at the third paragraph there, yeah.
Okay, also, the conceptual plan shows 4 adjacent outdoor storage uses on the propane portion of the site. The plan doesn't indicate it will be stored in 2 of those area where the above-ground propane tanks are not shown. So, that would be here and here. So, clarification is needed regarding
As to
that.
what will be stored there?
Right, what
What
would be stored in those 2 areas.
What are we talking?
In between the propane tanks?
Well, part of the business that the propane company does is they sell and install, underground propane tanks. So they come in empty, and then, by a small pickup truck, say, we'll take them out to a site, to a new construction sites, and they're buried out on site by excavators. So, basically, that was what's planned for those storage.
So they're new they're new
They're
tanks
they're
that will be
new-
stored there?
New empty tanks, and they come in and then they go out.
And is there,
It's not-
is there
it's
a
not-
height that I mean, how high are these things?
That I don't know.
What's that, you know, I mean, are you,
Approximately 15 feet.
so what are you looking to stack up there?
These tanks are they're only 4 feet high.
Right, but you can't stack them on top of each other in a bay?
We don't, no. No, because to pick them up, you have to back into them, so they have to be one at a time.
Okay.
So, basically, before you can give the special permit, the code says you have to give any variances that are required, will have to be granted. a little background, if you go to page 3 of the report and, a notice of violation.
So, yeah, is that clear? What's this picture here?
That's the clearing that, a notice of violation was issued for on April 6th of last year, for, clearing site work and storage of vehicles without site plan approval. And the next page also shows, another
Did you guys
picture.
forget you can't clear the trees?
And then on July 6th of last year, a
Looks
notice.
like a lot of trees.
Yeah.
A notice of violation was issued by the town fire marshal for operation of an automotive repair shop and storage of empty liquefied petroleum gas tanks on the property without an approved site plan. September 14th of last year, a violation was issued by the fire marshal for operation of a motor vehicle junkyard, which is not permitted in industrial A.
So are those rectified, or are those still, those violations are still in place?
When I went out there, in December, I believe it was, to do my site visit, there was still, many new cars parked on the property. There were also some older cars, a pickup with some tires in the back. I couldn't tell if any sort of, repair, operation was going on or not.
And we're trying
And
to bring, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I did pass by yesterday and there was still new car storage on the site.
So did you wanna say something?
Well, I was to say, we're trying to bring that into compliance and take guidance from the board as well as planning.
And you also have notice of violation, so I
Yes.
think you had clear direction,
Yes.
correct?
So
Yeah, I
those-
mean,
So
the
it's 4
violations.
violations in 4 months, is it? Is that right?
It started in April and the last one was September.
Oh, I see, 6 months.
But keeping in mind, you're not the only one with the notice of violation that has an application before the board where the applicant hasn't done anything as far as rectifying it, so your
So
site
that's
plan.
okay?
No, it's not okay, but
No,
I
no,
mean,
but
the
like
Sims property has it and you didn't seem to have a problem with it, you told,
I'm not
So-
sure what you're referring to.
They
I think
have
we're
what
talking
you're
about this
talking
special
about.
application right
I'm
here
talking
before
about
us, we have the
notices of
applications
violation
before
on
us. I don't think two wrongs make a right.
I totally agree with you.
I think the confusion is that the site has always been a pre-existing non-conforming industrial use. The site has been used, the entire site, throughout its history, so I
For
think
what?
there's been storage of motor vehicles, there's industrial uses there.
There was a repossession yard there that they still refer to it as.
I checked with Brad Hammond today, and they have no building permits, no use permits for any of those uses on the property at this time.
At this time, correct? Okay.
So,
You have to
just
clean it up.
a little more background, we had some pre-submission meetings, October of 2017, February of 2018, March and May of 2018, I had sent letters to the applicant, indicating applications were incomplete, and several emails subsequently. The application was considered complete after meeting with the town attorney on October 30th of last year. So basically, just to get into like the neighborhood and the site, it's a little over 4 acres, it's in the industrial A zoning district, the east side of Cromer Avenue, approximately 30 feet north of the property with the Long Island Railroad tracks. It's approximately 275 feet to West Main Street. There are 2 buildings on the property. One is to the south, which is small and obviously vacant. When I visited the site, it was basically split into 3 general areas by 2 rows of Jersey barriers. The southern part of the property is a vacant grassy area to the south with there's a dilapidated building to the north with a hole to the rear with falling down construction fencing, right around here. Then around the building, the area, to the north of that grassy area and around that existing building appears to be, RCA with, dilapidated asphalt and dirt. So it's very dilapidated. The middle portion of the site is delineated by the rows of Jersey barriers, included, the larger building, the surface of much of that portion of the site is surfaced with freshly broken up asphalt.
Is that from the property?
It looked to be like maybe some was from the property and some may have been brought in to facilitate the storage of the new vehicles.
Yeah, it's gotta be cleaned up. I mean, is this in justice court? If the notices of violation were issued last year, it is in justice court? So I guess
know
we'll,
that there's been tickets and violations have been issued.
so I guess we'll have to discuss that in the executive session as to.
I'm just asking what the asphalt's from,
Yep,
that's all.
That, I mean, I don't know, cause I wasn't there, but it looks to be like some may have been there and broken up, and some may have been brought in for storage of the vehicles.
Okay.
To make a nice surface for them. So with the larger building, there's an outdoor storage area in the front surrounded by a 6-foot tall fence with screening fabric. And it looks like they're storing large and small empty propane tanks and some plastic containers labeled Go Green, which may be some sort of recycling containers. The rest of that portion of the property is storing these new vehicles, Subaru, Ram, and Jeep. So basically, the southern and middle portions of the property have no trees or wooded areas except for trees noted growing up between the railroad tracks. The third portion of the property, to the north and east of the northernmost line of Jersey barriers, has a driveway, which is kind of in a depressed area, that leads to the north side of the larger building. And then the area to the north of the driveway is wooded. If you wanna look at,
You get the aerial photos, I gave you an 8.5 by 11.
on page
Shows it.
6 though, you can see, a 2003 area and a 2008 area, which kinda shows you,
Is this where the clearing was?
the clearing was done along the roadway.
Oh, that
You
trees
can
in the
see
front?
up top, there were trees along the roadway, and then also to the north of the larger building, before that driveway, there was also another set of, treed area that has been removed.
what is the, clearing permitted in industrial A? The percentage?
Well, I mean, we don't have a clearing percentage per se, there's you can have a certain amount of floor area, you can have a certain amount of, impervious
So
surface.
there's no restrictions
You
as
have-
far as limits of clearing?
Not
You
unless
have
you're in
to
the
have, a
Pine Barrens,
continuous-
compatible growth area.
You have to have a contiguous landscaped area or open space area of, I believe it's 15% of the lot area.
Is that shown on the site plan?
It's not, he's indicating that, they are providing the 15%, it's not specified exactly what's included though, but it looks like they're going to provide 15% landscaping. They're proposing to, clear whatever wooded area remains to the north, which also appears to have, what may be a wetland, with standing water and Phragmites reeds. There's a picture of that on figure 15. If you wanna look at that, that's on, page, bear with me, page 10.
Is it on our town wetlands map?
No,
It's not on any maps, state or town.
We had a consultant go there that works with the DEC, and it's a sump, it's not a wetland, and,
Did they write did they?
we're gonna provide you with it, we just had the inspection done after.
Okay, yeah, if you could provide that to
Definitely
us.
provide that.
So it's
This
not
one-
on the town or the state wetlands
This whole-
inventory?
right, we requested a, analysis based on the format that the environmental planner
Okay.
uses to
Okay.
determine whether that's a
We-
wetland or not.
Way back, before this was a machine shop, this building evidently was a potato grading barn, and they washed and graded potatoes there, and that sump was dug then for the runoff wash when they washed potatoes. Now that
You gotta speak up.
I'm gonna try to get when those dates were, when that was, but we've had old timers from town come in and say they worked there when it was an A&P grading barn when they were a kid, and, that's what that hole is for.
But you had the DEC come out and take a
Yeah,
look and
yes.
write you
Yeah, and
something?
they're gonna do the form that the town provided, Karen had emailed me that form.
Okay.
there's a mention, this parcel is also in the, DEC Wild Scenic Recreational Rivers area. So, I did forward the plan to the DEC,
Which portion of it?
the whole thing.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah,
It's
it
in the-
it goes up Cromer Avenue, fairly far, so.
Okay.
It's the recreational river though, not the scenic river, right?
I believe so, yes. So, I did get a call from someone from
I
the
read that in
DEC
here.
who said that, of course, they need to apply for a permit. And that they'd have to, collect a 3-inch rainfall with the drainage. And that, they said 30% of the site would have to be open space, I believe. So, but that's another agency, so.
Yeah, but that's important to know before we vote on the special permit application as to what the uses are and what the size of the buildings are and things of that nature, if it's applicable.
As, and later in the presentation, when Karen's done, I'm gonna be talking about SECR, and we're gonna be talking about that, because we haven't even started talking about SECR yet.
So the 30% open space, might be recommended that they keep what little wooded area is there. Okay, basically the, adjacent parcels are all industrial. There's a industrial use across Cromer Avenue. The closest residentially used property appears to be, just under 500 feet away on Forge Road, but that's south of West Main Street. There's a trailer park a little further on Forge Road. The Glenwood property
Thank you.
is approximately 800 feet to the east, but there's a wetland on the property, so that provides a little more buffer to those properties. Parcel is outside of the sewer district and a sanitary system is proposed. There are no sewer mains available except on Old Country Road. So nothing on Cromer is sewered. I did look up in the code and the parcel is within the industrial receiving district, which is a receiving site for Pine Barrens credits, which they're going to need for the sewage system.
For the density?
Yes, they're over density.
How many Pine Barrens credits?
I think it's between 1 and 2 credits. So as I said, on page 6, you can see the 2013 aerial view on top and the 2018 aerial view on the bottom, and you can see the darker area adjacent to the larger building to the north. That's the area with those asphalt millings I referred to.
And it's been in same ownership this whole time?
They took over, what, April-ish or something?
March. It was in March, right?
So you took ownership in a purchase or a yeah?
The purchase.
You're the owner? Okay. So who's the owner?
The owner is
Cromer.
48 Cromer LLC. The principal of that owner, of that LLC is Frank Fisher.
Okay. He's the sole owner.
He's the sole.
Okay.
The 2018 aerial view is accurate, except another row of Jersey barriers was added to the north of the smaller building, and there are more new vehicles actually parked on the property.
Oh, since the violation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry. Pages 7 through 9, actually 7 through 10 give you some pictures of the existing conditions on the site when I did the site visit. Taking up on page 10. The project,
So the propane tanks that are there,
Mhm.
those are empty new tanks that are sitting there now?
I assume so, yeah.
Yes, they are. And I met the fire marshal there and showed them that they were empty tanks. He's seen them.
The project has been identified as unlisted with coordinated review recommended. As far as variances, it appears a variance would be needed for insufficient parking unless the plan is modified. For showing no loading berths for the industrial office tenant building when two are required based on square footage.
Question I have for Jeff on that would be, each of the uses has an overhead door and a loading berth as part of the industrial use. So, to do two loading docks on the site doesn't really make any sense, cause essentially each tenant, you would pull in and unload right within the tenancy, so.
Well, I kind of addressed this a little bit later, but we can kind of go into it now. I realize that it's, gonna be a split up building and that there are gonna be multiple tenants, but typically with a contractor building, you would have a striped loading area in front of the overhead doors. And typically they would be to the rear, so you wouldn't see the vehicles and what have you.
But they have them not in the rear at all, just in the front?
No, they're indicating that all the loading will be interior to the building, correct, Marty?
Correct.
I don't know if that's practical for everyone, depending on the size of the vehicles and whether they're gonna be using up all their interior space.
So, alright, could you just repeat what that, so that, they would, in each one of these spaces is their loading?
What Marty's saying, that everyone who uses a vehicle, each contractor who uses a vehicle will come in the overhead door and load interior to the building. Typically, when you see these type of industrial tenant buildings, they'll have a striped loading area at the overhead doors, so people don't have to come into the building.
So they're using the
But-
square footage within the building for their loading area?
Right, and what I also brought up was if they were to show these striped loading areas, there wouldn't be enough space between the parking and the loading area for backup of people parked in the parking spaces. They're also showing the overhead doors right next to parking spaces, so you would potentially have a big truck parked here and, people in their vehicles parked right next to it, which.
And the other
Or
thing-
possibly getting in and out of the vehicles with the,
Right, which I don't think is really a very safe thing.
doesn't sound like a safe
with,
situation.
especially with vehicles parking interior to the building and backing out where somebody's getting into there.
Well, and we
So
had that accident this year.
So you have somebody parking in the building, in the front, parking in the building and a loading bay out here, you have two?
No, they're not showing any exterior loading
Okay,
areas.
I wasn't sure if it's just in the front, okay.
Right,
The other thing to be mindful of is that we do not have a fire prevention plan at this time, because we get that later.
Okay.
But there are gonna be striped fire lanes, and, those parking spaces may interfere with where the fire marshal wants the fire lane.
Okay.
well, as I said, they're having loading taking place at the front and the rear of the building. If it were not to be interior to the building, there wouldn't be enough backup aisle between, loading areas and parked vehicles. So, I guess.
Do we have that anywhere else in town where they don't, for this type of building, that they have their loading inside the building?
Not that they don't show exterior loading areas that I have been involved in anyway.
Okay. Is there a reason that you're doing that?
Well, I think it fits better.
Space? Okay.
So that's kind of a
Loading fuel
open
into
issue. Did you have a question, Catherine?
I'll wait and see if you answer it.
So the question is, would, the board be okay with interior loading? Okay, so the site looks to be a good site for such uses, like I said, surrounded by industrial uses, it's in the industrial receiving district, so Pine Barrens credits can be used, any residential dwellings are quite a distance away,
Karen, hold on, when you say Pine Barren credits, you're talking about for sanitary
for
credits?
sanitary, yes. So as I said, it's kind of a little unclear if the lot area is sufficient,
And then I just have a question about for sanitary, because it seems like, I know that you had said that the sanitary is for the whole build out.
Yeah,
correct?
it's
And
based
is
on-
there one, you know, if it were to be subdivided at some point, how does that work with the Pine Barren credits? Is it,
We'd have to go back and reevaluate it when if they did that based upon what the tenant water usage is for each property.
Well, yeah, it would be
It's premature to
kind of
speculate.
no, I'm just kinda, you know, if you have plans down the road, just to be prepared.
Certainly
Alright.
the health
We don't-
department would
We
be
have
involved.
absolutely no plans to subdivide at this time.
So, under Article 81 of the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, each separate parcel prior to 1981 gets 300 gallons a day per tax parcel. So, what is the proposed flow?
I would have to get out the,
Do you have it in your report?
Do you guys know what?
1,614.96 gallons per day.
So you'd need like 2.5 or
Yeah,
almost
no,
three,
no,
almost
the
didn't get into it
the
in
allowable's
detail.
1,200, so we would need, 12, 16, we'd need 400 and something gallons, so it'd be about 1.5, yeah.
Wait, how many tax parcels are there?
one,
One,
There's one, and you're saying the allowable is 1,200 gallons a day?
based on the lot area. So it goes on the regular density.
it's based on the, what groundwater district
Oh,
you're
okay.
located
Right,
in,
yeah.
and the size of the parcel
Got it.
and the uses, so I did figure it out, I didn't include all the
That's
details. And it looked like it was over maybe 1.5.
Yeah,
my
exactly,
credit.
that's what it is, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I wanna imagine it's on 4 then, or 6.
So, basically, we went into the loading berth issue, already, so I will skip that. I'll get into the parking a little bit later. So one of the criteria is that it not be near a church or a school or what have you, and the closest one of those is a church in an industrial building about 600 feet away, so I don't think that'll be an issue. As far as adequate facilities for, traffic and sidewalks, 4 curb cuts are proposed along Cromer Avenue, which is a little more than we would typically want for one parcel, but since they're proposing 2 separate uses and kind of, separating them, it may be desirable. They're showing, two-way, curb cuts
All
for
of the
the-
curb cuts are proposed entrance and exit, or are they one ways?
One of the curb cuts for, the propane facility is going to be, an exit, just an exit. So I did speak to, the highway superintendent, and he indicated that, he didn't have any problem with the unrestricted turning movements and the amount of curb cuts. The curb cuts are more than 75 feet from the nearest street intersection. I did forward the, plans to, New York State DOT, because they have the intersection with, Main Street, which is fairly close by, and they said they had no comments on the project. So the town board should indicate whether they want any additional information to analyze,
And Cromer's only one way, you can only make, so they'd have to all exit the one way off of Cromer unless they were heading east.
right, they would be going on
Unless you're heading
to,
east,
Unless you're heading east.
yeah.
they would be heading
The
to West Main Street
I
for the most
believe Ms.
part.
Kent mentioned before about this tragic accident that took place, that's why we have the 4th curb cut, it's totally for safety. We don't want in the propane facility trucks backing up, so we have, we have a transport truck with a tractor trailer coming in, they're coming in and going out. That's why that was put in,
Put in the
it's
fourth.
specifically for the safety that we do not want tractor trailers and these large trucks backing up.
Before we get into need for additional information, that's really falls into secra. I wanna address that in my comments, Karen,
Okay,
but I'm gonna do that after you finish your
oh,
report.
okay, very good. So again, I guess Jeff will address some of these items, separately, but, things like number of propane trucks, number of,
The
rail
activity you're
cars,
looking-
that kind of thing, but, as far as sidewalks go, they are proposing a sidewalk along the frontage,
Is there continuing sidewalk go down Crum, no, right?
no, but,
There are
as each
main-
project comes in, the planning board is requiring sidewalks, so hopefully at some point there'll
They'll
be
connect.
some
The other thing
more.
that sidewalks do is not just for pedestrian and walking, it provides a means for, containing, stormwater runoff and drainage and directing it into the appropriate areas where stormwater containment can be, absorbed.
Okay,
One thing they will have to provide is a better walkway or a walkway from the sidewalk to the buildings. One of the things we'll have to look at during site plan review would be the radiuses of the driveways. As far as emergency conditions, at the time I wrote the report, comments were pending from the fire marshal. They are showing some striped areas to, well, some sides of the buildings, which I'm assuming are fire zones, cause they're not labeled. But I did get a, memo from the fire marshal yesterday, so I will give that out.
that the applicant have
Yep.
access to, you've had,
And by the way, the date is January 16th, 2019, not
Yes.
2018.
He did have a lot of, questions, I guess, or things that would need review.
Is there a proposal, is it in the application that they're going to be using the rail right away, or is that?
Well, initially that was going to be a phase, but now that's all supposed to be done at once, so.
They're gonna
the
be using the rail right from day
Building the
one?
propane, building the tenant building, reactivating the rail spur are supposed to be one phase now, so unless they tell us different. Okay, so one of the criteria is about adequate off-street parking and truck loading spaces, at least in the number required by the zoning code, and adequate for the anticipated use. So we kind of went into the loading issue already, so I'd like to go into, parking. The parking calculations exclude, about over 3,000 square feet of space. They have to be, we have to determine if the subtraction of those areas is allowed, so we need to know, you know.
When you say excluding 3,000, you mean interior floor space of the building?
Correct.
Okay.
Based on the calculations provided, which I couldn't really confirm, the tenant building requires 107 parking stalls, not the 106 listed as required. The parking lot for the tenant building only includes 95 stalls. They are showing what I'm assuming is like a concrete walkway between the two portions of the site. So it looks like they're proposing to have some of the parking for this building on the propane portion of the site.
but without direct access.
Well, I mean, I guess they would come in using these curb cuts and park here.
So you haven't seen a floor plan yet based on the proposed uses inside the building?
No, I've seen a floor plan, it shows, you know, just an empty space and a bathroom.
So it doesn't say storage or offices or
This can't be-
lunchroom or,
No,
We have to address
No.
this now.
okay.
That's gonna be an issue.
So, parking calculations indicate 8 spaces are required for the propane facility part of the site, and the site plan shows 19 parking stalls on that portion of the site. However, they'd have to provide 12 stalls for the tenant building, in addition to the 8 propane, for the propane facility, so that would total 20 stalls.
And the propane trucks park here? Are they stored here?
Well, that's one of the things I was just gonna bring up. They're showing 9 extra long parking stalls here, which, we were told at the pre-submission that, propane trucks would park there. So those would really have to be subtracted from the amount of parking stalls available for employees and customers. So that would leave 105 parking stalls when 115 are required, so, I think that really has to be kind of clarified, and, because if all the parking can't be fit, then the size of the building may need to be made smaller.
Yeah, I don't like giving special permits for sites that need variances.
We'll give the calculations to show full compliance with parking. The only question I would have would be that if we have to add 2 designated loading areas on the, site, that would be the only question I'd wanna get clarified from
You gotta
the
clarify
code
these,
official.
the longer spaces for the the large trucks though, they're not
In the propane area.
in the propane area.
Yeah, they are showing a loading dock in the propane area, so that kind of covers the propane area. The only question was loading for this, tenant building.
I mean, if I could just get an official interpretation on that from Brad or whoever would give the town's interpretation, whether or not we need, and if so, we'll then work out adding a loading space on the other site, that, I just wanna know, so, before we make.
Whether or not
Well,
they need,
Basically,
why we're
for
here.
a floor area of
Aren't you giving
25,001 to 40,000 square feet, 2 loading berths of at least 12 by 14 feet, or no smaller than the use, would have to be on the site.
that's in the town code?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So there's your
Yeah,
answer.
under loading. Okay, so as far as, buffer yards, landscaping, walls, fencing, screening, there are no adjacent residential uses, so there's no transitional buffer required in this case. The supplementary guidelines indicate there has to be a 20-foot buffer to the roadway and a 10-foot buffer from other property lines if practical.
And what do they show?
They're showing, they are showing a landscaped area along the front.
A 20-foot?
Yeah, it's at least 20 feet. I think it's 30 feet, including the sidewalk. But I did look at the site plan, it shows just grass and trees, so it wouldn't really provide much screening. Also, the propane facility does show a fence around it, but there's no information about the height and type of fencing, so couldn't really,
Where'd you say the fence was?
it's around the propane facility. I could it's on the site plan, I don't think it's actually on the special permit plan. But, I mean, we can always, address that during site plan.
There aren't any residential properties adjoining this piece,
No,
correct?
no,
Or
that's why,
residential uses?
no,
Okay.
no,
I think it's
the
just
closest is
500
about
across the
500
street.
feet away
500
on,
feet, you said on
Forge
Forge, right.
Road.
And then 800 feet away
To,
Okay, just wanted to clear that.
Glenwood,
Right.
and then they have a wetland
The
on the
adjacent
property,
properties
so.
is Norsec, Concrete Yard, and Paraco, those are the 3 properties that touch that property.
The one area that faces, West Main Street though, is an entrance to our main street to downtown, just for the fencing over there. Cause the rails
Well,
goes through there?
Here's West Main Street, then you have, the railroad tracks.
They have and then it
And then
buffers
it's like
back, okay,
30 feet again to get on
Gotcha,
this property.
gotcha, okay.
So again, the applicant indicates that there's going to be no subdivision. If there were to be, you'd be concerned about potentially sharing parking between the 2 portions of the site. Also, I would recommend some restrictive covenants prohibiting any storage not accessory to the approved principal uses on the site, including storage of any vehicles for car dealerships. Also that all site grading and demolition be done at the beginning of the project and all construction take place in one phase.
I have to say something at this point, because it's part of the fire marshal thing here. I think this phasing got confused with a conversation I had with Brad Hammond. And he was using the word, stage, not phase. And then by stage, cause then he said that would allow me to get a CO on one building, then, while the other one was being built. So now, is that correct? If we use the word stage, can we totally build out the one building, have that CO, so it's operating, while we're not, no time difference, but while construction is still going on the other
I
one?
think that's two separate things, I mean,
Because mainly,
phasing-
what I'm getting at is this, from the fire marshal, there is no, we're not gonna have the approval from the railroad in a timely fashion that's gonna work with the construction time of this project. I mean, that could take 2 years just to get an approval from them, so that has to be a phase, a stage, whatever we wanna call that. Before we can hook up to it, we would get you the approval from the railroad, but that can't be part of
Did you
starting
submit-
the
Did you
construction.
submit that in writing in terms of your timing
no.
of your?
No,
phase?
if they're showing that the rail is part of this site plan application, and you're giving a site plan approval, you can't give a site plan approval or a building permit unless they actually have that letter, just like with the DOT, right?
Well, like I
You
said,
issue a
initially,
permit,
we were
but-
told that there was going to be phasing or staging involved, and there was some question about the order. And then we were told that there would be no, phasing or
Phasing.
staging involved, so, you know, it's fine if they want to phase it or stage it,
They can let us know though.
If they wanna build one building before the other, but how do they get an overall site plan approval if they don't have the letter from the rail?
Correct.
That's what I'm getting at. The site plan, with the entire site will be 100% constructed at the same time, cause the tanks come in and they just set on top of the completed site plan, you know, the completed work on the site.
because if, let's say, they were gonna build the propane facility and not do anything over here where the tenant building would be, the question would be, oh, well, what are you gonna do there in the meantime? If it's just that you're gonna build out everything at once, and then maybe the railroad would be done later, I don't think
Rehab
that's a problem, we just need to have something,
That's-
an application that makes
That
sense.
states
Exact-
that
the
clearly.
entire Right, the entire site plan is at the same exact time, building up the building, and building up the tanks. But, again, I had met with the MTA, and they said that the permit process to go through that could be up to 2 years, so that.
And
So
that
you're
could
not
get
gonna use
addressed
the
in
rail
secret?
until you get approval from the railroad anyway.
Right.
Correct.
Just let Jeff address that for a minute.
That has to, Ray guys, and Marty, that has to be addressed through SECR, the phasing, the staging, whatever you wanna call it, it has to be addressed through SECR in terms of impacts. Is the impact gonna be during a shot within 2 years? Obviously, from what you're saying now, it's not gonna be within 2 years, it's gonna be immediate traffic and construction impacts as part of phase 1, and then when you get your permits for MTA, that's gonna be a 2-year phase after that. That's gotta be addressed in some sort of phasing plan that's gotta be evaluated and analyzed through SECR.
But there's no, as long as there's no segmentation.
Correct.
So,
That's where the problem.
the overall site would be looked at with a proposed
Build
use
out.
for the rail and a full build out.
But they gotta give us
But
the
the
phasing.
use for the rail, predicated on permits from the MTA.
Yeah, and they gotta give us that phase and, cause the traffic, if you say that, for example, shopping center, 50,000 square feet, is gonna have X amount of traffic impact. Well, obviously, you're not going to construct and build that and open it up for 250,000 square feet on day one, it's gonna be phased out. You gotta analyze it for the full build out, but your mitigation is by the way, we're phasing it in over, say, a 5-year period. Same thing here, they're not proposing this as, the approval process from the town is gonna be one shot, but the phasing of it is gonna be, from what we're hearing, is gonna be multi-year. So we need to hear, and I'm not the expert on that, I'm not MPA, they gotta tell us, so that in part of the secret process, we can analyze that.
So basically, all demolition would take place at once, all grading would take place at once.
And also the traffic impacts, because obviously you're not gonna get traffic from the generation from the rail spur for 2 years after site plan approval while they're going through MTA, whenever that, they get their MTA approval.
But secret will be done based on the full build
Yeah.
out and the use of the rail. So it's not gonna be a minimized review under secret, it's
No.
gonna be based on the full build out.
Yep. But they gotta tell us what that phase-in period is.
So then that would address the approval letter.
The, chief building inspector, one of his comments was, propane bottles cannot be stored indoors per fire regulations, and it should be determined and covenanted as necessary whether smaller tanks and bottles will be stored on site, which my understanding is they would. the limits of such storage areas and whether there would be adequate screening. So,
And that's in this
those would be in those two areas we were
So it'd be in those
speaking-
storage areas.
Okay,
So those are, so one would be used for storing filled tanks and one would be for empty new tanks? Is that what you're?
The new tanks don't go inside the building is what, I believe that's what she's saying.
right, the full propane bottles cannot be stored indoors per fire
So
regulations.
those also?
So the full ones would have to be outside.
Yeah.
Right, but that's not something that's stored though, you don't, but yes, they would be outside, if they were full, they'd be outside. But there's not a storage area where you store full propane.
Oh, I thought
Small
that's what
tanks.
you guys had said, the new empty tanks would be, just the large
empty
tanks would
tanks.
be here?
The new empty tanks.
But we're talking, I guess, you're talking about,
New empty tanks, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused.
yeah,
Right,
Well, he's saying propane bottles, which are the smaller ones.
right.
like the grill stuff?
Cannot be stored indoors per fire regulations. So you'll be having those smaller bottles.
We don't,
Oh.
we,
That,
we,
for,
the
for
business,
retail?
the business doesn't do that, we don't do retail, we don't do barbecue tanks.
Oh, I thought
We have
when we
100
had
pound,
the,
we have 100-pound tanks, we have the 100-pound tanks, and we have what they call a 420. But we don't have the little 20-pound
And
tanks.
you're not you're not filling up people with
People
barbecue tanks.
people don't come there and buy,
So there's no retail
there's
service at
no
all, it's
retail
all,
service
right.
at all.
but I thought at the, one of the pre-submission meetings, there was going to be some smaller containers that would be handled at this.
Well, we have thousands, we have 500s, 420s, and 100-pound tanks. By small, we were referring to the 100 pounds, not a
relative, huh?
barbecue tank. Yeah.
So I guess Karen's saying all of those tanks, once they're do they get filled on demand, or, and the tanks are stored empty?
What
They get filled on
right,
demand, or are they
the-
pre-filled?
Some people cook with them, but most of our business is for, like, temporary heat for construction sites, temporary heat on house, and that's what, builder calls, I need 10 100-pound tanks, we fill them, they go on a truck and they get delivered out to wherever that site
Okay,
may
so
be.
you're not gonna have a bunch of 100
No, they get,
filled?
no.
Okay.
No, they get filled and they go,
And anything that's pre-filled, it needs to be stored in an outdoor area.
Mhm.
right.
Okay. Right, so basically he's saying also that any empty ones should be, should be stored inside unless they're adequately screened outside. So, either, what would probably be the most efficient thing would be to screen the entire property, so you're not screening outdoor storage areas within the property.
Right.
So, the fence, I'd recommend a opaque fence and then having, landscaping. Okay. Some of the things that are criteria are, don't apply. A public space definitely wouldn't, be appropriate in this case. A SWIP plan will be required and reviewed by the town engineer, should take care of all your, stormwater issues. Health department would be reviewing, for sanitary sewage, and they would be required to have the Pine Barrens credits, as stated before. They're proposing one small dumpster enclosure on the tenant portion of the site, about 8 by 8.
What's on the propane there?
No dumpster enclosure.
How can you- okay.
So I would recommend a separate dumpster enclosure on the propane facility portion of the site, because, there's a retaining wall and parking stalls between the two properties. And I don't know if an 8 by 8 dumpster is really gonna work for an 18 space contractor yard. So I would recommend having a larger dumpster enclosure. The water district said there was insufficient information for them to comment at this point. We would typically recommend an irrigation well for all, landscape, irrigation.
And also, if there is, if it's an irrigation well, then it wouldn't matter, but I guess it matters whether or not there's iron in the water, because that happened with Riverhead Building Supply, where all the curbs turned orange, and, they weren't happy about that, and it wasn't very, appealing either, so they fixed that.
Yeah, I haven't heard any complaints about it within the past few years about,
With the irrigation wells?
yeah, with the iron staining, so maybe the water district took care of it, I don't know.
Well, if it's.
Well, no, it's not
It's
water
if it's a
district,
well,
because,
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah,
sorry.
But-
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't heard any complaints myself.
But I would like a condition that if it is public water,
Mm.
that they have the rain sensors on the,
Yeah,
on the
the
sprinkler system.
planning board is,
It's something I
requiring
requested of the
that.
planning board quite a while ago, so I'm glad if they're requiring it, but I know it's not in the standards or the guidelines.
okay, so as far as nuisance issues, noise and vibration, that would, be involved with the propane delivery and the contractor trucks, the dumpster emptying, rail cars perhaps. But it's all in an industrial area near the railroad tracks. Like I said, the actual industrial uses should be clarified on the application, or, it's just listed as industrial.
So, as far as the rail and the cars and the storage and like, what is going to be brought out by rail or brought in by rail?
Only propane.
Only propane. So the propane tanks are not gonna be stored in a, trailer or in a container outside, it's going to be.
The train car comes in, they unload, and they go right back out. The same as, Paraco has a spur at this time, they're doing the exact same thing. They shut down the line about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, they come in, they bring in the propane, and they go right back out again. So there is no train cars stored.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to be
No.
clear,
I
that there aren't any
Ray,
containers or
one
concern
clarification
trailers.
on that, because having reviewed this sort of type of facility in the past, down in Bridgehampton, I think it was Paraco, they used to have a rail spur down there. They always had at least three tank cars on the spur at any one time. And taking a look at the propane facility to your south, in the aerial, they've got 3 tank cars on the site at any one time. One of the things I'd want as part of the secret review, is letter from MTA and Long Island Railroad, because from what I understand now, there is a minimum tank car delivery. I think it's 5 cars now. It used to be 3, and I think they may have upped it to 5. So all that really needs to be analyzed through secret. And that's just one of the things I'm gonna touch on when my part comes up.
And I'm just saying, as far as the outdoor storage, if one of those, cars should be taken out of service, like, that there should be a condition that it's not gonna be stored on site. Or if it is, it should be screened properly.
And then it goes into, I think the responses back from the applicant is how are they going to shuffle cars, and pulling empty cars out, bringing new tank cars in? That whole analysis really needs to be provided to you, presumably to be, as lead agency, you should know that operation.
Yeah.
It'll mirror exactly what's being done next to us. It'll be the same process that's being
Yeah,
done.
in fact, that's exactly right. If you
Right.
take a look at what you see to the south, it's basically the same size. You've got the 8 tanks and a whole bunch of the smaller, tanks around it, and then it's approximately the same.
So as far as, construction and the operation and regulating hours, I really didn't think that was necessary unless the town board feels it's necessary.
Is there any regulation on the others surrounding, the other industrial uses surrounding this?
Not that I'm aware of. And then it talks about, the criteria talk about, further special conditions and safeguards. So I had gone into a little bit about, providing some additional barriers for these, diesel tanks to prevent vehicles from potentially hitting them. Since they're removing those underground, propane tanks, that those comments are no longer
That's these
applicable.
the fuel, the recharge,
Right, the diesel tank.
cause that's right by the,
Right, it's right by the exit, and the curb wouldn't be enough. I think on the site plan, they show a detail with what may be bollards, but they really should be
Yeah.
shown on the plans and labeled. What else? As far as, roads and right-of-ways within the site, there really are no roads, just, traffic aisles. Although, we did do a title review, and there are 4 recorded easements, drainage, electric, telephone, and railroad car access. and a Cromer Avenue dedication. The survey only shows, unspecified right-of-way, which appears to be for the railroad spur. So we really should get a title survey, showing these things. Solid waste, again, I just brought up that the, looks like they need another dumpster enclosure and a larger dumpster enclosure.
Another dumpster enclosure or a larger dumpster enclosure?
Both, both I thought, one for the propane facility part of the site and a larger one for the, tenant, contractor portion of the site. Any screening of those we can ensure through site plan review. So, that's basically it. So I guess it's up to the town board what they feel should be included, and Jeff wanted to go through SECRA, with you.
I know that we've been talking about the application on the micro level, for a lot of this morning. We got pulled back a little bit though, and look at this at the macro level. SECRA has to be completed before a public hearing can be scheduled. Jeff Seaman did prepare a September 20th, 2018 report on this. As Karen pointed out, this is an unlisted action, and we are recommending coordinated review. There are a number of issues and recommendations and additional information needed from the applicant in order to fully analyze and assess potential impacts of the project. First and foremost is, we heard verbally today is what the proposed uses are going to be in the proposed building to the north. We really need to get more detail as to what the nature of those are. Two, we really need a traffic study, not just for trucks using the site in terms of both the contractor you're building to the north, but also to the propane facility to the south. They're gonna be utilizing different types of trucks, tanker trucks, single axle fixed trucks. But not only just for vehicular traffic, but also rail traffic. How many tank cars are coming in? When are they gonna be delivering them? When they're coming in, delivering them, how is that going to interface with the rail facility to the south? What is it gonna do for traffic when, they close the gates for the Cromer Avenue? What's that gonna do to traffic along Cromer Avenue? Minimum number of tank cars required for the site. We really need to hear from MTA and New York Atlantic Railroad.
So Jeff, just out of curiosity, so the approval letter, from the MTA is required access to main line. That is separate, all of this information would be needed. The approval process, obviously, we know
Yes.
can take a long time, but all of this other information still needs to be provided, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Next item is that they really need to evaluate the pre-clearing, site conditions. Obviously, we can't say, well, the trees are already gone, whatever was filled in, we don't need to analyze it anymore, that would be a silly thing to say, so we really need to get analysis as to what was the site, before they cleared it. And then there's, that's just my initial comments, in addition to what Jeffrey wrote in his memo. The next step for SECRA would be for us to prepare a resolution for your consideration to initiate the lead agency coordination to all involved agencies with the request that you, the town board, assume lead agency. At that time, we'll hear back from the planning board. I'm sure they're gonna have the most comments of any other agencies. I'll have a report prepared for you, based upon any additional information by the applicant, or me addressing you, board, what additional information is needed, and then we can make a decision as to whether or not how to proceed going forward with SECRA, whether or not we want to have the applicant prepare more information, or if we want to issue a positive declaration, require an EIS. But that's premature to speculate on that until, let's get the pre-SECRA process started.
How big is this property again? I forget.
It's a little over 4 acres.
4 acres, okay.
So the next step is to say, staff will prepare the resolution to initiate lead agency, and then, in the meantime, I'll start preparing a report, for
But
your
does
consideration and for the planning.
Does the application have to get
Well, we really should get if they're not proposing phasing except for the rail line, that we should get an updated site plan application and special permit application indicating that.
And a narrative on the uses and the number of cars that are gonna be coming in and out on rail, and the number of trucks that are gonna be coming out in and out on, especially the cars coming in and out on rail, and the number of times a day, because that will back up the traffic on Main Street when it comes to people turning off of Main Street headed north on Cromer, that they could back up potentially onto Main Street.
My recommendation is that a traffic impact study be prepared not just for the vehicles on the site, operating on the site, but also for the addressing the rail traffic and how the rail traffic's gonna interface with the, the truck traffic on the site, so.
Yeah, so
My
that might
recommendation is-
require a letter from MTA and Atlantic as to the availability of the number of trains that would be able to come to the site on a daily or on a weekly basis, so that it could better be be analyzed through the secret process.
So that's my summary of the secret.
So what are we asking of the applicant at this point, to update their application for us to move forward?
I
Well-
think they've heard a lot of information from us today, that I think they need to respond back to us. In the meantime, we'll prepare the resolution for lead agency.
I have a question on on the uses of the north building. There are permitted uses on the north building in the zone. I mean, at this time, if we don't have a tenant that specifically rented a space, I mean, if we're just gonna say that they're gonna be permitted uses, what more can?
You have to anticipate the highest, most intense use that could go in there for a secret evaluation.
The highest and most intense use. So if we don't have the space rented for 20 years, that's the number we're gonna use, what's permitted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
And then if you
highest
come-
and most intense use of the
Right.
permitted uses, correct?
And that's it.
So will we get some type of a bullet list document from you saying what we need to
I'm gonna prepare an
address?
initial letter, but we're not gonna wait for the secret resolution. We'll go ahead and start that, and then I'll go ahead and start preparing my additional report, anticipating a meeting with the planning board, because they're obviously gonna be an involved agency.
The, just as a footnote, the July 18 reapplication did indicate the rail access as a separate phase. And that
Well,
included.
right, but
It can't be
I
a
got
single line
a-
response, it's gotta be a detailed response in terms of how it's gonna operate.
I mean, the last application I got was dated October 30th, and it did indicate some phasing, but you were saying that there,
Was that site plan or a special permit?
special permit application indicated phase one would be propane distribution, number two would be rail access. It didn't even really address the tenant building.
Well, see, my understanding, the special permit is about the outside storage of the LP. Now, they have to look at, other options, but the entire project is subject to a site plan. My understanding
Right,
of the
but we
special
can't
permit is
really
that it's for the use of
We
the.
really can't segment this is the propane, this is the, we kinda wanna know the
The interaction
phasing for the
between the use.
whole thing.
And that's what secret requires, otherwise, Marty, that evil word. We don't wanna go down that evil word, yeah, don't want to go down that road.
Now, would that then mean that there would be at least for the special permit, because obviously the reason for a public hearing is for public input and mitigation. So now that we're at this point, would the public hearing be scheduled to get those
Well,
comments?
this is exactly what we're discussing, and, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, you do the lead agency coordination first, and then you
Yes.
assume lead agency, I'm assuming the board's gonna wanna assume lead agency. And then
Well,
you
the
gotta decide.
public is also gonna wanna know, and your neighbors are gonna wanna know, how many cars are coming, rail cars are coming in and out, how many cars are gonna be coming in and out of the facility, whether or not there's gonna be a backup on Main Street. I mean, even though DOT, in my opinion, prematurely said that they were okay with it, they should be concerned about the traffic on West Main Street, as to if there's only a certain distance from the rail to Main Street.
Well, did DOT
And
know about the rail?
They were sent the application, which mentioned the rail, and they were sent the plan, and, I did speak to, one of their representatives on the phone, so I think they were given a idea of
I
what
mean,
was
they,
entailed.
with the development that took place on the corner of Cromer and Route 58, they did require that light to be there, and so they probably have the signaling and the timing that they can adjust as needed for this development.
That may be. I really didn't get any input other than, we're okay, we have no comment, so.
Jeff, do you wanna just review again for
Yep.
what the process is?
Right now, we're going to write a resolution, requesting lead agency and sending it out to all involved agencies, we're gonna request lead agency for the town board.
And that's a 30-day.
That's a 30-day process. I would recommend not having a public hearing this time. There's a lot of information, I think, that's still needed from the applicant, that is needed before there's a public hearing. Once we get that information, then I think we can go ahead and schedule a public hearing. But I think there's a lot of open-ended issues that we've raised today that need to be answered before.
And the public hearing will be for the scoping, or for SECR, or depending on
It
heads of?
depends, at this point, I don't wanna speculate on that until we get through whatever, the 30-day review process, and then figure out what information the applicant has provided us and what information is needed.
But right now, you said it's an unlisted action.
Correct.
So it's not a type 1,
No.
which would require SECR, an EIS.
Doesn't require it, it just mandates, coordinated review. Uncoordinated, you don't have to do coordinated review, staff is recommending coordinated review. There's a lot of issues in terms of, rail and traffic and, fire prevention, the site clearing. There are a lot of open issues that SECR needs to evaluate on the whole site as a whole.
And the recreational rivers.
Correct. And we've heard that from DEC, that's a significant issue.
Does that clear it up for you a bit, or do you have other questions still? That's the process?
Yeah, I need clarification on the phase, stage terminology. I have to know, is there such a thing as staging and when another one is phasing?
The first time I've heard about it from Brad, so I need to
Our
find out from him what he means by that.
Our main thing, if the site plan is 100% done and inspected,
I think you can get approval processes at one time, the question is,
the north building is up and built and inspected, can I put tenants in there? Will that building be sealed where tenants can go in and start functioning while the other part of the project is being built?
Well, I think one thing I wanna say is that it looks like right now they're sharing parking, so, you know.
Right, so
parking would have to be fully built out.
that becomes an issue if in order to.
that becomes your
construction going on and
phasing plan,
parking.
Ray, in terms of what improvements are you going to construct and when?
They're not gonna be sharing parking when we finish addressing the parking, that was brought up today, but what I'm getting at is, will we be able to rent spaces in the north building while we're working on the further southern
I
part
think
of the property?
Marty can come up with a plan that can satisfy Brad and the fire marshals and engineering, grading and drainage, but, that gets into SWIP also, so it's not just a simple yes or no. In theory, I absolutely agree with you, cause you wanna get income generation on this property. You don't wanna wait for MTA for 2 years.
It can't.
Yeah, that would kill you, so I understand that, and I don't want to preclude that, I just don't know how to make the numbers, you know.
You have to show us what it is you're planning on doing for us to say, you know, how it can happen.
But I just
Because-
think it's definitely workable, it's just a question of how to do it.
I'll just say that the CO was issued for Costco before Alto was built.
Right.
And the CO was issued for Costco before the back building construction
It's
has
done all
even
the time.
started.
It's all the time.
So
It's
it's,
done all the time.
you
Yep.
could
And
build a building.
and like I said, I think Marty can come up with something that will satisfy everybody.
Yeah, it's done all the time, you could, you know.
But the site would have to be in conformance with your approved site plan before
Right.
you're even getting a CO on the first building, so.
Absolutely, we wanna do the site complete 100%, and, for instance, if the fence goes up, and the north side is starting to do business, while the other side is going up. But all the site work is done and approved, it's the same as getting a shell, like you said, we've got
you get
shell
it.
permits, we've got, and then,
Right.
yes.
All right, okay, any other questions? Or-
Okay.
No, okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I've been to them.
I think we're gonna take, Joey's, the resolution that she brought up,
Okay.
Sue and Drew are still here.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Let's do that.
And if Anne Marie wanted to come up, because I know she was working with the DEC also.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna- John, you're gonna get her? Anne Marie? Okay, thanks.
So this is just another item that we're going to add to our work session.
Yeah, thank you. And,
So this is authorizing the Second Amendment to the contract between the Town of Riverhead and European American Waste Disposal Corp. For residential solid waste collection and disposal services for the Riverhead Refuse and Garbage District. So Ernesto, are you
and I
aware
have
of this?
copies for
You'd
the
like
press,
to come
if
up?
you need them? Do you have a copy of this?
I got the resolution.
we started early, so.
I'll just let you talk to me, we'll go on.
Sounds good.
Just gonna wait 1 minute, I think Catherine's. Okay. Thank you for coming. We just have to wait for Catherine.
We have a copy of that, thanks, it's
Of the
attached.
calendar?
Yeah, thanks. So,
Let's just wait 2 minutes, Catherine stepped out for a second, we'll just, if you could get her, please.
Yeah, made copies, but I don't know if you wanna hand this out to the press, cause this is not,
You have to
it's
be
not our
showing it here.
official.
You can just hand it out and just put draft on it, right, draft?
no, they have a copy of it,
do?
but it's just,
It's just an example. Just wanna make that clear that that's not our
Yep.
official calendar just yet.
Where'd you go? Getting there, I don't know.
Last item was old, so
Yeah.
restroom is
So
probably.
is it only women's day?
Mm-hmm.
well, Jim was here earlier, and then he left. He left his glasses.
He did.
He's here in part.
I hope he's not driving.
I hope you survive. It's only women.
I'll take my
It
chance.
was actually very smooth today.
So
New
far,
year.
so far,
It's a
so
new
good.
year.
Don't make me laugh when I'm taking a sip of coffee.
All right, you know what, if you wanna start explaining them, and if there's questions Catherine has when she comes, we can fill her in.
So, as the town board is aware, last meeting, we authorized an amendment to the, our residential
I think
solid
you probably have
waste.
to talk a little louder, 'cause I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna keep getting.
To our residential solid waste, so this would be a second addendum. As stated in the prior resolution of January 15th, we identified that European American would be taking the town of Riverhead residential solid waste to the town of Brookhaven. Obviously, like all solid waste facilities, they are monitored by New York State DEC. The town of Brookhaven is routinely monitored by New York State DEC, who has advocated and requires a separation of the yard waste from the solid waste. That said, because European American will be hauling our waste to Brookhaven, it's gonna require a separation from the solid waste and the yard waste. Therefore, European American came and spoke to the engineering department and requested that the town agree to a second amendment. In our original contract, we have our solid waste collection days, and we have in the past allowed residents to put out their yard waste pursuant to restrictions regarding the size and the bundling, and then an additional 10 days. European American, in order to comply with Brookhaven and New York State DEC, has requested we amend that. We will still have our 10 days pursuant to our contract that were solely limited to yard waste, but in addition, what he would do at the cost, not to Riverhead, European American will absorb that cost
Of an extra pickup day.
of an extra pickup day. So residents will no longer be putting out the yard waste with the solid waste. Instead, they'll have a separate day for yard waste collection.
Right. And the,
Is that-
I'll clarify that a
Yeah.
little bit. So what, European American is proposing is to, currently they pick up yard waste traditionally on the second day of collection. So depending which district you're in, that's either Thursday or Friday. So now you'll continue to put out the yard waste in a separate, either, trash receptacle or in either paper bags, and a separate collection, a separate run will be done by the carter to come collect that. So
on the same day.
the same days, the amount of, the schedule will change slightly. The yard waste will only be collected on the days of, what we're proposing is to send out a new, updated flyer. So there'll be, most months, there'll be at least 2 pickups a month
For yard waste.
for yard waste. So that second collection day of that week, so for example, what we're proposing would be, we'll use February as an example, the first full week of February, that the 7th or 8th of February would be the yard waste collection day of that month.
So is that gonna be a flyer, or is that gonna be another sticker to the magnets that everybody has on the side of their refrigerators?
That's
Because
yet-
that would be the preferable,
That's yet to be determined, we have to
Correct.
finalize our, talks with the Carter.
So it's really just the separation that people have to do, so on
Yeah.
so there's no commingling of solid waste and yard waste, so that's the big change. And that those will be put out on the same day as a solid waste, but they have to be in a separate container. Do those containers, are we requesting labeling? I mean, I know they have the paper bags, but some people just put their yard waste in a bin and gets dumped, so.
Yeah.
they separate them now, it's just they're both picked up and thrown in the back of the same
Right,
truck at the
so-
same time.
I'm gonna be in my home watching them pick up my solid waste. My yard waste is gonna sit there until a separate truck comes along.
Later on in the day,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
Yeah, vice versa, so that's gonna be a little bit of a learning curve for some people, you know, we'll have
Right.
a period of time where we might be getting inundated with some phone calls, they didn't pick
Can I
that
put
up.
your number on the bottom of the screen right now?
Call or Ernesto.
So the resolution, you know, it's in draft form, and what I've provided is, we would post it on the web, put it in the News Review, post it on Riverhead Local. Under the law, we can't quote, distribute flyers,
Right.
so it would have to either be an official mailing, so I think that's something we could discuss with the
Yeah.
town board and the
That's what I've been
Carter in
working
the
on
next
with
day or two.
engineering and Emery, so, but I really think that it's important to, you know, get the sticky attachment that goes to the magnet, especially because we're only in January, and people rely on that, rather than taking up a piece of paper and throwing it in, and then forgetting all about it as to what their pickup
Right.
days are and what's changing, so if it's changing,
Right.
it's gotta be the new, peel and stick onto the magnet. I think that's what the residents are used to, and if there's a cost associated with that, then we need to know about it versus, you know, a flyer, so.
Yeah, I agree with Jody, actually, I refer to the magnet all the time.
Me too,
What,
So do I.
and
what,
so do residents.
what day are we looking to start this, with the February, not the month of January?
It's gotta start immediately,
Well,
2 weeks.
Unofficially, it would start immediately, but we would, you know, have a start date of, well, after the resolution we adopt,
Right.
so that'd be the 7th and the 8th of
immediately after,
February.
yeah.
But we're putting the notification out now to let people know that if they put out their yard waste and their household waste at the same time, that just because one gets picked up and the other one is left at the curb, don't panic, because the other one will be picked up, but just later on in the day,
Yes.
Right.
And it's the second pickup of the week,
yes.
Second
Yeah.
pickup of the
second
week.
pickup
Yeah.
of the week.
So-
Just out of curiosity, is there any reason it can't be the first one just for weekend yard work? Because,
Our second day has always been our bulk day, correct?
A bulk day, I mean, we can discuss it with the Carter if that's what you, please, but, what we've proposed so far is a second. We
Okay.
haven't,
Only because it coincides with
the
the
bulk,
bulk.
okay. All right, I mean, it's a necessary change, I think that there's no options here, I think that the key will be education here. So we will, you know, have something put together and get it out to all the news outlets and the media, and we will look about getting the stickers, changed and distributed.
But the calendar is just a draft as of right
this is
now,
just a
so
draft to give you
it's,
Yeah.
an example of what it would, the amount of pickups and sort of how we're distributing the pickups throughout the year.
yes,
That's basically
so-
every other week.
so we're not gonna post that calendar as of yet.
This is a draft calendar, if
Yeah.
any of the
Correct.
press has this
Yeah.
at this time, please note that this is only a draft calendar, that was put out to discuss the resolution, in an attempt to see the number of days per month that it would happen. So as soon as we get together, which I would imagine would be by the first or second day of next week.
Yep.
And then we can give you the official calendar of how it'll be
And
done.
it's a draft resolution.
A draft resolution also.
And the Carter is working on the official calendar, so we should have that hopefully very quickly.
Yeah.
And then if you could just discuss the peel and attach to the magnets, that would be,
Yeah, I mean, if that's the route that we mutually decide for him to go to, it
Well-
would be the same exact one that just came out this week.
yeah,
I think we have a majority of the town board here that supports that.
Yeah, I think that it's a
So-
useful tool that everybody uses, I think that to have one that's incorrect on your fridge is probably not a good thing, but,
Avoid the confusion, I would agree.
okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any way we could do a 2-year one then?
They're pretty
Just a
small
thought.
already.
Or can you do one on front and one on back, and the magnet still goes through?
So what we've been doing is to save money, we stopped bringing the giving
I
the
know, just
magnets
give
out.
them, yeah,
So,
And it all depends
Okay.
too, I mean, when
Just a thought.
Brookhaven, they're telling us, yeah, you can bring your stuff to us twice a week, but they could say, okay, now, instead of bringing this much on Tuesdays, you have to bring it on Wednesdays, or.
more than 1 year there at the daytime, we would Brookhaven?
Correct.
Yeah, we know what they offer next year already.
Well,
The
Not the
days,
dates,
But
not
that's
the
true.
days.
We know the
we
level.
know, right, all our residential solid waste will be accepted there, we don't know.
Like, because this is a new trial for Brookhaven too, this is the
Correct.
first year that they're taking in Southold, Southampton, Riverhead, and everybody's garbage, so if
It may
everybody in all 3 towns is bringing their garbage there on Tuesdays, Brookhaven might say, nope, you can't bring it till Wednesday, or we need to spread it out a little bit more.
Okay, that's
So
fine,
you can weigh the cost of a two-sided magnet as opposed
we
to
could try for next year.
2 years of stickers.
Let's just get out the
yeah,
information that we need to get out this
It's
year
roughly
quickly.
$1 a house, that's what this is gonna come out to, so you're
Put a
talking,
new
for a new
homes,
sticker and a new
something went
mailing.
up, or-
it's gonna be, this is a $15,000 mailing.
Not cheap.
Well, that said, I don't know, I think we should look at, maybe we could do a reach out to Brookhaven.
And just to find out. So we
Yeah,
could mail 2
because if it's
calendars in one
possible-
shot.
Yeah, would be
That
nice,
would cut mailing cost in half.
yes, correct. So maybe we can confirm our dates this year, and then we could do 2.
Okay.
That would be nice.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right, just as some discussion, the town board liaison appointments, I have not come out with the full calendar, I've gotten everybody's request, I was just, was waiting for some confirmation, Tim had made some requests, so I'll get that for the next, meeting, but as of now, everybody just to stay on their current, assignments, so I think that that's fine.
Except Catherine took over Peconic Estuary,
Peconic
now
Estuary.
that she's the liaison to the environmental committee, so.
Okay, very good. The next one, we have, Ray and Judy for the 2019 salary facility, rate, resolutions. Good afternoon.
Not quite.
Good morning, but it looks like afternoon.
I know.
6 more minutes. You're gonna say hello.
All right. I'll do the salary one, Judy, so then. So basically, this is just the salary resolution for the part-timers. Same as last year.
Just need to give to the press also for.
Actually, you made some. So the only change we did from last year, this is the system that you had, Laura. The only change we did from last year was that we just moved it up accordingly because the minimum wage went up to 12. And it continues to go up. Other than that, everything remained the same.
So percentage, since the minimum wage started at 12, did you just go up 2% on everybody? How did you figure this out?
We're in the process of doing all the employees now, and then.
But I mean, like the
As far as that?
the Rec Aid one, right, was 11 last year?
Correct.
Okay, and the Rec Aid 2 was?
You know what, I don't have that in front of me, but I believe it was $11.50, so everything moved up accordingly to $1 each.
I think it should go up by a percentage for everything following the $12. I think that, you know, a 2% increase, is,
Just 2% over last year, keep the minimum wage at,
two,
If they were making,
because there was 11 last year. All right, so say
then they come up to 12.
to 12, and then it went from 12 to
what they were
11.50 to
making
12.50, I'm sorry.
11.25 last year, what's the 2% increase on that? And then add that to the $12.
You wanna
Does
say
that make sense?
I wanna say, bring it up to the minimum as long as it's over 12. So if they were making 11 and you add 2% on top of that, and it comes to, you know, $12.25, then it would be $12.25, not $12 and then, cause they're already getting their 2.5% or 2% plus.
Yeah,
Right.
Just cutting up to the 12.
we try to keep it fair with the
I
minimum
think
wage.
I think
and
they
the
just want the,
entry-level people.
and just also the, I think you just have to have some distinction between the different, between
Yeah,
the
well,
different.
if they were making $12.50, then they're gonna get 2% on top of that, so that, anything
We-
above $12, they get the 2% on top of.
We were not
Anything
gonna-
below
yeah, we-
$12,
Okay. But we weren't gonna do that, because they were getting, if they were making $11.50 last year and they're going up to $12.50, we felt, that's good, because they're moving up with the minimum wage. So they're jumping on that
But
bandwagon.
what's 12.50 and the 2%, right, would be less than the 12.50.
It's not much at all, yeah.
So if you could just refigure those.
Yeah, we have some time, because this is going in February 5th, so what I'll do is, we should have all the salaries done next week as well. We'll, correct this accordingly, and then we'll bring it back to the work session next week, so you can.
So can you show what the employee was, what their
Yeah, we'll
salary
do it
was
from-
last year,
Yeah, that's
and
what I
then
usually do,
what
we
the
just, rush this out,
proposed
so.
increase would be? Good.
Last year, yep, and then we'll show all the percentages, so you can have everything in front of you.
Good.
Okay.
Bring that.
Okay, very good.
And then the next one is the facility fees. Again, we had a healthy year in 2018, so we kept the rates the same. We checked around Brookhaven, Smithtown, they all did the same, they kept everything the same. What I did, the only difference between last year's resolution is
Ray, I
that.
need one more for Jim.
Sure, I got one. We just combined everything into one big resolution, so, yeah, the East Creek on here, you have.
So let's just start from the beginning,
Go ahead.
so there's a $25 application fee, for what is it required for all contracts, what does that mean? For all facility use contracts?
Anybody that is getting a contract, they get a $25 application fee.
But that's a facility use contract?
Correct.
Okay.
Single-use meetings, reoccurring meetings. Reoccurring meetings is, the groups that are, like, the ladies that do the knitting, things like that.
These are all Riverhead Town residents, or is there a
Yeah,
different fee
yeah,
for
they have-
out-of-town residents?
No, they have to be Riverhead residents, or the majority of Riverhead residents. We do require them, to submit a roster of people that are coming to their meetings.
Do we allow anybody that is not a Riverhead resident to rent a facility? I mean,
on there?
what?
We have a non-resident usage fee of $100.
Okay.
So, does the Navy pay us when they use the Henry Pfeiffer Center?
We don't charge the Navy, no.
And why is that?
Just professional courtesy, we've never charged them before.
They meet 4 times a year, quarterly.
Yeah, with Joey Maron, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I go to those also, but.
We can charge them, but we just do it.
So, and this is the community centers, and which facilities? This is George Young?
And when we do have Henry Pfeiffer open, but right now it's being used by East End. So this is really just GYCC. Judy wanted to, talk to you about the senior center.
Well, that's what I was just wondering, so
I
this
just
is,
brought that along
is
too.
senior centers separate and apart from these fees?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then let's stick to these till we hit that. So, okay, so we got a single usage meeting, $15 per hour, a minimum of 2 hours.
Yes.
Reoccurring weekend meetings during weekday meetings during business hours, $75 surcharge every 6 months.
Correct.
Weekend events, parties, $70 per hour, a 4-hour minimum.
That's for residents.
Residents, non-residential is $100 per hour with a 4-hour minimum.
Correct.
Curious, just for these weekend events, we need to, all of these events are staffed as per their normally staffed building, or do any of these events require other staffing?
No,
Additional staffing?
We just put the one person in there, to open and close the building and to be there if they have any questions.
But
and
that's for,
It's a separate position.
but that's for weekends, or for, which events is this?
This is, well, for every event, I mean, we always have somebody there, whether it's Maddie during the day.
Right, so like, so
weekdays,
if you have a reoccurring weekday meetings during the business hours, that building is staffed, correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that you don't
that's
have any
fine.
additional staff for
No,
that?
no, just for
Okay,
the weekend.
a single usage meeting, that is day or evening?
Yeah, whenever,
Okay.
it's a lot of, evenings. a lot of
Okay, so those evenings, the building isn't staffed, we're required to put a staff in to come and open that meeting and stay during that meeting?
We usually have something going on for the majority of the week with the recreational activities, so they're there, anyway. So then we have multiple rooms.
But my question is, let's just say that it's a Tuesday night, you don't have anything going on, somebody rents it for 2 hours at $15 an hour, how much are we paying our staff to be there?
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
We're
no,
not covering our costs.
no, we do.
How much are we paying a staff per hour? With benefits?
They don't,
$12 an hour we're paying,
I
plus
think
the
we're
Give
paying
or
more,
take, yeah.
I think we're paying more than that per hour.
plus the benefits.
There's no
12
benefits, they're
$12.
part-timers, they don't get
But
benefits.
let's just go back, okay? So, for what staffing has to be in the building to open up the community center for somebody, to use it?
Just our one, staffer that stays in the office, we used to call it
Okay, so
security person, but
So they need to be there, if it's minimum 2 hours, they're gonna be there 4 hours, correct? They have to open the building,
Well,
be
yeah,
there
but
during
they
the
can
event, and
come
close
in-
the building.
they can come in 5 minutes before the event and leave 5 minutes after the
Okay,
event.
but we know the minimum that we pay for somebody is $12 an hour.
Yeah,
Alright, so we're laying out $24,
correct.
right? And then we also have to clean, And
No,
remove-
that's cleaned by, it's cleaned during the day by, engineering with, Matty in there. I mean, they'll straighten out, but for
well,
the most
I'm
part,
just,
they're in and out.
I would, you know, you're getting $30
raise it a
for,
little bit more.
yeah,
I'd
I
raise
don't
it
know
to
that
like
that's covering your costs.
$20 an hour, because we have ADP doing payroll for those 2 hours, we have the accounting office doing, you know, checking
So $20
time
more?
cards.
No, I think you need to see who you normally have staff there, how much you're paying them for staff, you have to have the lights on, you have to heat the place, you have to clean the place, you have to dispose of garbage. So I think that is not covering our costs for the single, usage.
But you also have the $25 application fee that they're paying, which they're just writing a check for $25 and putting the application in, and then your staff is checking to make sure the date is available.
Correct.
And really, that's, and
And
then
staffing,
scheduling somebody.
and then staffing it, right?
Mhm.
And then do they need to make sure they have insurance or any of those other issues?
Yeah, well, it depends on the group, but for the most part, yeah. either
So I
hold
would say
harmless
it's
or
probably at
charge.
least almost an hour's worth of work once somebody comes in and put for a staff member to process the application and confirm everything and schedule.
I mean, it's part of their day, but yeah, I mean, if you wanna break it down that way, sure, yeah, it'd be about that.
Maybe you wanna break it down per daytime meetings or evening meetings?
I agree with that. I think a daytime meeting should be a set of, if we're staffing that as a matter of business, then. And the
Okay.
same with I think you need to take a look at the weekend events. And what the staff required for that is.
Same thing.
You're
We-
saying that during the day, somebody's there anyway,
Correct.
as opposed to bringing someone in.
Okay, and same thing with the weekend parties, we just have one person in there.
But for 4 hours now.
Yeah, and again, good 80-90% of the time, we have recreation events, so they have to be there anyway.
But is there more, if you're having a party or event, I would imagine that there is more garbage that has to be picked up and transported somewhere else by our sanitation workers.
Yeah, we have a dumpster that,
But that dumpster needs to get emptied and is filled up more because of the events that are going on and the trash that's generated.
Do you have any kind of limit on how many people they're allowed? I mean, if someone's having a party in there,
yeah, each building has their own limit, so. I'm not sure off the top of my head what GYCC is, but we never get more, than that.
But I agree, the staffing and the carting for the dumpster, and if they're filling a dumpster, if they have a lot of props, like you know what I mean?
parties.
Yeah,
We
yeah, I
just
mean,
need to cover our costs, you know, I mean, I think that's, you know, if somebody's using the facility, we need to cover the costs that we incur.
okay, I thought this model was, but, you guys make some good points, so we'll do it accordingly.
And my other question is generally on the events, parties, non-residential usage, just if off the top of your head, if you know, what's the resident versus non-resident, usage as far as percentage?
I would say the majority is, I mean, I can get that, that's easy, but the majority is resident.
Okay, good.
The tournaments is down below that, again, it's 200, this we tweaked for 3-4 years, and this, we finally feel we have the right combination here. It's 200 per day, per location, so if it's at the ball field, it's per field.
Wasn't, I just vaguely remember something with this fee, something about the number of hours associated with it, whether it was an all-day tournament, whether it was a half-day tournament, and there was
Yeah.
different prices for
Yeah,
the tournaments, is that?
That's why we switched it over to 200 per day, that it became complicated with the hourly rate.
So this is, if you do 200, you have the location for the entire day, nobody else can be booked there?
Correct, yeah, whether it's per field or, it's really just, they get it per field, it's $200 per field. So a lot of times they're paying, $800 per day, because they're using 4 fields.
And now we have the remote access to the lights, where you could just turn the lights off by your cell phone, right?
Only at the skate park.
Okay,
But any lights that we do put in will have that feature now.
How many fields, at Stosky there, how many of the fields are lit?
3. 1, 2, and 4.
And how do they determine who gets the lit? Is it first come, first served? Are those Riverhead residents? Are those tournaments? How does that work?
We don't really usually have a problem with people booking out. They usually book out Veterans Park. But as far
Veterans
as,
Park doesn't have lights, right?
correct.
So,
Yeah, not yet.
but, I'm just saying, if
You
we
mean the
have,
priority, who would use the field first?
well, no, yes, correct.
Okay, it goes by the Recreation Department, it goes school, does, schools next, residents. Non-residents or independent groups are on the way bottom of the list.
But it's gotta be first come, first served, cause you gotta take the
Of course,
application
of
in and
course.
shore up the date, and then,
But
whoever, that's why we charge
We
more
usually
for
bring in,
non-residents.
yeah, we bring in pretty much all the applications at once, Ashley sorts them out, and
Do you
then
have
we just.
a deadline date per season, per sport, like January
Correct.
1st? So
We
what is
do.
that, what is that?
Well, Ashley just got back from, maternity leave, so it's got pushed back, so hers, I believe, is the end of this month, that they have all their applications in for the
So
spring,
anybody that
summer.
wants to use a field for next spring,
Just the spring and summer, correct.
just spring and summer,
You have
that
to have
they,
it in by a certain
they-
deadline.
and then, once you get all of those applications in, if you have your application filled by that date, then school comes first, then residents, then non-residents?
Correct, I mean, we usually a lot of the independent groups come in, and because they're doing multiple events, so they'll come in,
But you
and-
can't pre-book, that's what I'm kinda saying, like, so say I'm a non-resident, I put in my application today, and a resident comes in and puts their application in at the end of this month, I don't get bumped for the non-resident because we
No,
have an
no, we don't
application.
bump anybody,
No, no, but I mean, say if you want the lighted field, there's a deadline date that everybody needs to submit, and then once that date, everybody submits during that date,
Then we
then
apply
you
the system.
prioritize who gets what.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Right.
That's
But
why
if-
we do it that way, because
But if
this way you get
somebody
them all at
comes in
once.
in February and that date
Then-
isn't taken, then, and they're
Oh,
a
then, yeah.
non-resident, then they get it first, and then if a resident
Yeah.
comes in, they're not gonna cancel the
Yeah,
non-resident.
Right,
we do
right,
that,
I'm just-
we give them that grace period, so if you're a resident, get it in before the deadline and you'll get priority.
So the deadline is what day for this year, for spring and
I
summer?
have to get back to you on that, we moved it back because, Ashley just got back.
January 31st.
Yeah, it's around then.
Okay, so January 31st would be the deadline for submission, and then you'll be notified?
Yeah, and they all the returning groups, or, they get letters in the mail every year, about a month prior, saying this is the deadline, the set of dates, please submit by this date, and then if they don't, then other people.
Right, then
have the-
they're just in the pile,
Correct.
okay. And just out of curiosity, with the rental fees for the tournaments, what kind of staff is needed at the fields on those days, and what kind of, what goes into that?
They're very minimal, we have a park attendant there, if it's a large event, we station a park attendant, sometimes a second park attendant there, if there's a lot of people there. But for the most part, the events, can run on their own.
Okay.
I don't know if I mean, if you had, is it a rare occasion where you have several people that are applying for the same day or the same weekend?
It happens, it definitely happens, but as far as we apply, we have that formula, we apply for it. If it's let's say it's two non-resident groups that are looking for it and they're in by the deadline, we would give the priority to the group that has used their fields in the past.
Right, I'm just curious about you'll be given, your money will be given back if you cancel 1 week prior to the event, so that's not giving the other group enough time to take that
it
date
used
if
to
they
be,
wanted to.
we do a week, because in the past, some people used to cancel, the day before the event, and then we're
I'm
stuck.
saying if the deadline is January 31st and they're not looking to use the field until April, May, or June, or July, or August, that it should maybe be a month so that you can, allow that date to open up for somebody else to come in and rent it for that day.
A lot of times they'll cancel, if they don't get enough teams for their tournament, so
but-
they wouldn't know that a month prior to that. They would-
Right, but then there should be a 50% because
Right.
somebody else, or one of our residents may have to pay to go into a field somewhere else. So, I mean, I think they should make a decision at least 30 days in advance, otherwise they lose 50% of their deposit.
Yeah.
It would be tough on them, just because based on any of the leagues that run, they run these tournaments and their deadline, say, a week before, they're not gonna know, until the week before.
But we lose
whether
out on
they're
renting the
Right,
field
we
out,
lose
so it's the
money.
taxpayers of Riverhead that lose money renting the field out because they didn't, so they don't lose money, but we lose money.
We usually have backup groups, we're giving them a week, they usually take it. So last year, we had probably almost every weekend booked. I don't mind doing what you're saying, it just
Well,
might
we
be
do it
hard
for
to
the
apply.
2.5.
Yeah, we do, I mean, I think it should be.
We're doing it for everything else in town, doesn't seem.
Yeah, it
Then
should be.
That's fine, we
okay.
can do that. So you want me to, 30 days, 50%?
Do you feel that if, given 2 weeks' time, or 30 days, this is your use schedule, that if somebody gives you 2 weeks' notice, you rebook that field?
Oh, yeah, a week notice, we usually get to rebook the field, because we have backup people. We'll say, all right, well, Group A has the field, if they don't use it, then, you're eligible Group B.
Are they just
can then
moving
go
from
right
one
in.
field to another, or that's a new book?
Usually a new book, it depends, if they're looking for 4 fields, they obviously go to Veterans Park. And, but they know they're the first backup company.
How many
that does it.
cancellations do we usually have? Let's start there.
I don't know, because we put the rainouts in there too, so last year, like I said.
Well,
we had
rainouts are
very-
rainouts, but.
Yeah, well, we count that as a cancellation, so it's like not a weekend of lost revenue, as I call it. But very rare last year, I can get that number for you, but it was very rare, we almost booked every weekend, just about last
Do
year.
we wanna do 2 weeks or 30 days notice to cancel a tournament?
I think 2 weeks would be fair.
Alright, how about we do 2
2
weeks?
weeks, we're giving them money back. And,
I would say,
or no,
I would say
30
2
days,
weeks,
we're
2
giving
weeks
them
and
money
two,
back, 2
two,
weeks part of the
two
process.
weeks, we give 50% back. 30 days, they get a full refund, 2 weeks, they get 50%.
We have a better chance of renting the field, because if I'm gonna come to Riverhead and say, hey, I wanna have this like family softball tournament or whatever, and you tell me, I'm sorry, that date's taken, I'm gonna look for another field, I'm
Yeah,
gonna go to
yeah, for the
Baseball
most part.
Heaven, or I'm gonna go wherever, so your backup may be
Yeah.
already have another
Well,
place a week before.
Yeah, the way Long Island is though, that fields are so hard to get, so that's
Yeah.
why we have a waiting list. My only thing is when the these youth groups come in, and now let's just say they don't get enough people a week before, now they're gonna have to give us 50%, now these youth groups lose a lot of money, they don't make money off some of these things,
I
so.
feel like anyone that does fields keeps some of the money if they cancel at the last minute.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if we called around and checked, I would be surprised.
Brookhaven doesn't, I work with them all the time.
Just if you can't rebook it, you know, like ALI,
That sounds complicated.
places do that.
Listen, we can try this out, let's see how it works, you know, it's additional revenue for us, but like I
Well, I
said,
think
just
it
some of these
also
groups
gives
are not rich groups.
courtesy
that's all.
to the other people that were looking to get it, that have been bumped off the field, that now they have their 2 weeks' time to organize what they need to organize.
Yeah.
Because you gotta notify parents, you gotta notify everybody else, I think scrambling at 1 week on a Monday for a Saturday game is a little bit of a challenge, and I would imagine that a lot of times that doesn't happen either.
Let's put it out there, and let's see how it works.
And it also involves your time and staff time in order to get somebody else to try and register the field and make sure they have the insurances and everything necessary
Yeah.
to.
All our fields don't have
I mean, it's tight, it'll be tough on some of
They
these
don't
groups
all have lights.
to lose 50%, but put it out there, see what happens. Leagues, same thing, 75 hours per 4-hour time slot, $100 per 4-hour time slot.
And this is all residents, non-residents, how does this?
Leagues are all residents, we don't allow non-residents.
Okay.
Just residents only.
Okay.
So, going back to the other one, I'm sorry, but if we're gonna say 2 weeks before the event, they cancel, they get 50% of their money back, but full payment is not due until 3 days prior to the scheduled event. So, upfront, are you gonna be collecting half the money that's due to rent the field?
We'll have to readjust and do that, yeah.
Okay,
Because 3 days, because again, a lot of these groups rely on the fees that they charge the teams, and the teams don't pay until, you know, last minute, so
yeah,
it puts a
well,
burden
It's
on them.
$100.
it's $100, right?
What, for what?
For the fee, 50%
If
deposit
it's
upfront.
$200 a day,
Oh, for all fee, correct, yeah.
The other question for the leagues, ball fields, so, how many leagues are over at Vets?
Oh, we don't really have, we have one soccer league that I know plays there, and
We have no baseball leagues over there?
no, besides the Tomcats,
if we had lights, we would.
We would sell that place out if we had lights, correct. But we do, it's hard to get leagues because they play at night.
Okay.
If you wanna keep going down. Hourly, let's see, the next one, we did the hourly reservations for the, and the lights fee is $50, and we charge them at least, 2-hour minimum, even if they'll use it for 45 minutes. That covers all light costs plus. That we broke down a few years ago, and 50 is way more than covers it for an
Yes.
hour. All right, parks and beaches, the group picnic.
But what if
Okay.
fees may be credited to account if canceled 24 hours prior to the scheduled event date?
They won't give you your money back, or will credit to your account for the next event that you're running.
But these are leagues, so how are they doing a next event?
Like say the fall league, a lot of the leagues will do, and again, we really didn't get any, if we had one maybe last year. They'll do a spring league and then a fall league. So, but we feel we shouldn't give them their money back, we should just credit their account.
So what happens at the end of a season if they have credit?
They can apply it for the next season. Again, it's, like I said, I don't think we had one incident, one league last year that had to do this at all.
Didn't they have like a lot of the occupants of EPCAL, they put together softball teams and did that type of league at,
The beer league?
yeah, at Veterans Park? Where
Yeah,
they would,
they don't-
like Riverhead Building Supply would versus Island International, or, you know, they had different leagues.
They haven't, yeah, they still do it, but we charged them the regular fees and they didn't like that, they liked it for free. And so they're really kinda dysfunctional, they're not really around anymore.
Okay.
They used to call, we made them change their name from the beer league to just a regular league, 'cause we didn't like beer league at a park that doesn't allow beer.
Right.
So, but all the cops were on it. and,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
So it was hard.
And they have, the police also have the daily, or they have that one day league,
The
right?
PBA
police
tournament,
PBA
yeah.
tournament.
Yeah, we charge them the tournament fee for that, but it's the PBA tournament they come
We
in.
charge the PAL that, a tournament fee for
For
that?
PBA, yeah, but they make money off it. I have to ask, but they haven't been here in a while. They go to Brookhaven now
Makes
because,
me neat.
the lights.
Right.
It's hard, without the lights, they go somewhere else. So it's really during the day that we would run a tournament. You wanna go down to parks and beaches?
Okay, the hourly reservations, what's that for? The fields?
Correct. So if you wanted to do, hold on, let me see what this.
So what's the lights fee if we only have lights at the baseball fields?
It would be for at the Stotsky Park, so it would
But
be
that's the
one or
ball,
two,
that's the ball fields, right?
correct.
But the ball fields, didn't we say,
These are more for these groups that would like to use, a lot of people wanna use our fields to practice. So you get baseball teams and softball teams, we want a field to practice at.
so this this goes all into this January 31st that you need to apply for it before January 31st? Or is this just on an as-need basis if
As-need
nothing else
basis.
is booked?
Correct, as-need basis, and that's, like I said, we added the hourly reservations in there because we were overwhelmed with teams that wanted to use our fields for practice, and, it,
So they can't book prior to the January 31st deadline for the spring or summer, am I correct on that?
they usually don't, because they wait for their league to start. We actually will go with the groups first, then we'll give them their fields, the 31st deadline, and then these practice groups that come in, they usually don't come in until May anyway.
Yeah, I
Before
wouldn't
we
have,
start.
I wouldn't permit this until that 31st has been done.
Oh, yeah, no, we wouldn't just put a team there to practice for an hour when we can book it out for 6 hours.
Yeah,
But if you've already
normally-
booked them if you already booked them, if they booked every Monday at
It's
6.
like
They-
Riverhead
they'll
Little
come in-
League, like,
Yeah,
Riverhead
they'll
Little
find the
League
spots
will-
that we don't have.
That's what I'm
yeah, where
asking,
we have
so
an
it's
opening.
it's
Yeah.
after the tournaments have been
Yeah.
booked for
Yeah,
residents,
yeah.
okay.
It
So
kinda
if
flows
if
well.
Riverhead Little League gets a rain date, then, you know, for practice, where all the fields are closed, so they can't go out and practice, then we've
Yeah.
said, okay, well, there's an opening on Tuesday at 7 o'clock, so go
Yeah,
out
yeah.
then.
And
Exactly.
so then this goes to my other question then. Tournaments, non-residents, should they be allowed to book prior to this hourly reservation by residents? So should non-residents not be allowed to book before January 31st, but until mid-February, we allow residents to book for hourly reservations
It would
prior to
kinda,
scheduling non-tournament
a
rent.
lot of these groups come in and they book their multiple dates, before the deadline, so it would kinda mess them up
But
a
which
little bit.
groups? The tournaments, you mean?
Correct, yeah.
The tournaments and also the practices for the tournament, so if they wanna
Yeah.
go out for an hour after work and go practice, then they would rent it for an hour,
The hourly reservation is good to have right behind the tournament bookings, because they're only renting it for an hour, so
I
like,
was just wondering if our little leagues rent every Monday for an hour, for a season, for their practice. And I think that if we have non-resident tournaments,
Little League's separate.
then,
Only because we kinda block the fields for them, they really just use Statsky Park.
Yep.
So we don't charge them for their practices either, we give them a block, of times, and pretty much
So
for
if
March
they-
and April, it's just Little League, it's theirs, yeah, we don't allow anybody else on.
okay, so they're not in this January 31st thing.
No, Little League's their own,
Okay, so
Little League
Little
is totally
League,
separate
so Little
entity,
Leagues
yeah.
gets all entered before the January 31st.
Correct. Little
one.
League has priority to the fields,
That's what I'm wondering.
yeah, no,
Okay.
they definitely have priority over the fields,
Okay,
And they need it.
yeah,
and how many fields do they use?
all
Three
6
at
of them.
Statsky, well,
Yeah, they use all 6 fields at
veterans that
Statsky.
was open,
Sometimes we overflow them to veterans, correct.
the T-ball's on the
Yeah,
side.
it depends, yeah, some years they have a lot of growth, so that's good having a veterans park, so. We used to fight all the time for fields,
We used to get yelled at all the time, cause Veterans Park wasn't
Yeah.
up and running.
yeah. Okay, parks and beaches, that's remained the same, it's a group picnic or beach party, it's $10 per hour. Really, there's not much we do with this, because anybody can come and use the facility, at any time. But if they want 15 or more people, then we can officially book it for them, it's $10 per hour. These are all residents. We don't allow, we have a gazebo pavilion rental for non-residents, but everything else is residents only. So, we just added the $50 attendant cleanup fee for the bathrooms. In the past, we didn't do that, but we found that we'd have to go in there extra to clean up, so we added that on there. And again, everything worked great last year, so. Down below is the seasonal parking permits. They're up again, our beach permits. We had another good year. You can see the trends, and the seniors are moving up more and more. But again, that's been the rate, and we felt that it was fine. We haven't changed a lot of these rates in a few years, but these are all residents.
What's that mean, the trends and the seniors are moving up?
Basically, the revenue for the seniors, senior permits, basically what it's saying is that we have a lot more seniors, and it's
Seniors are
increasing,
more spry
increasing.
now?
They're just using the beach a lot more, cause
Yeah.
they have a little more
Yeah.
time.
I mean, like, for instance, in 16, they were at, 13,000, 17, they were at 15,000, last year they were at 16,800, so you can see it's trending up, that we're having more and more seniors here.
And what's our senior age?
60.
I mean, I would like to see the senior age at least at 62.
You want me to do that?
What do you guys feel? I mean, that tends to be the age for a senior is 62.
The county.
The county is
60.
55, the
Is it
county's
60?
55,
Well, it's 60
actually.
for all our programs, any funding we get, you have to be 60.
60, okay, all right, we'll stay consistent with that.
I'd like to see a reduced
Yeah,
rate for
right, though.
veterans. When
They're
I
all over
was
the
in,
place.
when I was on vacation, everything was discounted for veterans.
We do that,
For the
I think it was
seasonal
part of,
parking
I
permit?
think we're gonna come to you separately for a parking permit, if you're a veteran, we do give you a comp
Okay,
ticket. And we
For a
asked the
parking
board,
permit.
when we go over the police, we put the veterans in there last year.
so police,
So
fire,
if you're,
veterans.
yeah, if you're a veteran, then we give you a comp sticker, veteran resident, obviously.
So seasonal beach parking for veterans is free?
Well, it was free last year, we're gonna come to you, very soon with the, permission for the cops, the ambulance drivers, and the veterans again, to ask the board if you would allow them for free again.
I mean, do you not just wanna make that part of this resolution?
Sure, we can.
Yeah,
If you want, I can add that, because again, we got a few weeks, so I can add that to it.
It seems like it should all be together.
You want me to add?
well, we should then discuss veterans, police, East End rowing, I'm not East End rowing, East End
The ambulance, is that?
No, the people that clean the beach every May, they go out
They're
there.
not, they're defunct. I haven't
Really?
seen them in a few years, yeah. East End, now I forget the name too, but I know what you're talking about, it's the fishing club, East End
Yep.
Fishing Club.
Yep,
I haven't seen them in years. They were,
So why don't we just start with you can come back with the emergency workers and police officers, but do we wanna just start with this one, with this resolution? So that it comes in, is the seasonal parking permit is, we have veterans and then just put,
I'll add it to
but,
this.
but you have to put in somewhere where how they get their stickers.
Well, yeah, we'll put we'll break it down of like what's required
yep,
to do that.
like
so.
military ID,
Yep.
but most people call and say what's required anyway, and I mean, you say
They
bring
do,
your
yeah.
registration.
But if they go to a beach and try and get a sticker and say, I'm a veteran, and you have somebody, they may be required to get it either on, show up to to pick up the sticker, cause I think to have everyone try and do it at the beach, where a lot of people get their beach stickers, may be a little bit of a challenge, so, you know what, think about it, and then when
Yeah.
you bring this back forward, then you
Sure.
can.
Yeah, and we've been, if you see, we're being more detailed as we can to tell you exactly what the rules are in each one, so we can easily do that, that's not a problem at all.
And my other question is, at some point, can you get your beach stickers, can you order them online?
You can.
Should there be a discount for ordering them online?
How it works online is that it's really just like a mailing system, so basically you fill out your paperwork, you
I
submit
know,
it
but if we want,
online.
so there
and then
should
we
there be,
just- we
should there
just
be a
mail
dollar
them.
fee to get them in person? Should we, are we looking, cause I know you've talked about this, how do we encourage people to go online and
Online
register
more.
online and do stuff online? So I think there needs to be some sort of,
There's very small percentage of people that took advantage of it, we thought there'd be a lot more.
well, that's what I'm saying,
You wanna put an incentive there, sure.
so why don't you give
Well,
that some thought?
It requires a lot of proof too, like you have to download documentation,
Yeah.
prove that you have to show your registration, your driver's license, and there's another form of, identification,
Yep.
a utility bill, so that's, I think, why people don't do it online, because you have to upload those documents and then,
Yeah, eventually I wanna get to a point where they can print their permit, at home.
But instead of eventually, let's try and figure out how we can start moving towards that direction, so.
We're gonna
if we
promote
could-
it, but if you want me to add, to the discount.
I want you to
we can
figure
do
out how
that.
to do it, that would be the simplest, and if it makes sense, let's do it, if it doesn't make sense, then we'll,
Okay, I'll
Figure it out.
address it and I'll bring it back with you.
thank you.
yeah, cause when you issue the beach permits, I mean, you guys go out and put it right on the car,
Yes,
so.
the majority, yeah.
If they were printing them at home, how do you know that
Their license
I'm
plate
not
numbers on
printing
it,
it as, no, it
That's
wouldn't be
the
on the
key.
sticker.
That's what we're researching now, is
The
going
license
through
plate-
their license plate
plate's
numbers,
number,
yeah, and then
so it's
with a
attached to the
scanning
car.
system, yeah,
And then all you need is your car registration.
yeah.
Right, but what-
That's the system we're going to, we haven't, like I said, it's a lot of research, a lot of things that go into it, but right now we'll put the sticker on your car.
What do other towns do?
Same thing,
Which one?
same
They
thing.
put the stickers on
Brookhaven
the car.
does, the stickers, correct.
No,
Smithtown
but
does
do
the
they do it
stickers.
with the license plate, is it attached to the license plate for the car is registered,
No, they do it
or?
pretty much the same way, in fact, Brookhaven never did a sticker system, everything was free, and they kinda followed us, and now they do the same thing we do.
And what is Southampton doing?
You have to go there.
Yeah, they do a mail-in program too, Southampton, that's where we kinda adopted it from, so.
But then the sticker is mailed back to them with the license plate number written on it, so whether or not you can get
You have to use
the,
that sticker for that car.
Yep.
Yeah,
so whether or not you can get, where if they apply online and then they upload their registration, their driver's license, a utility bill.
Yep.
And then if in the box where you put in your license plate number, that prints out on the actual sticker, and then it's a print, so somebody could just erase it or,
well,
Print it out
we'll
and
mail
put
it
a
out to
new-
them, correct.
Right, we currently mail, right?
We do the same thing that Southampton did. So
Yeah.
we're following their thing with the mailing, which is same thing, online mailing, same thing, they have to do that, and then we'll mail it exactly to that house, to attach to that car. We pretty much, the sticker's for the car, not the person.
we gotta start having our East Marine meetings soon.
What, the East Creek?
East Creek Marina meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parks and beaches, we did that.
Okay.
Seasonal parking lot, everything's parking, that's the same. The daily permit's 35, we've been doing well, with the daily revenue. Last year we did, it's not, I don't think it's all cleared yet, but over $40,000 in just non-residents
Daily.
dailies. Okay, East Creek, We'd like to keep, again, this was the ceiling that we put together years ago, 85 was the ceiling. I spoke to Bill, my records have it that we did actually, come out in the black this year.
Wow,
I wanna-
that's the first time since I've been here.
Yeah, but I wanna make sure with Bill that we're on the same page, so we're gonna meet soon and just make sure that's the case. But either way, we went up,
Were we full?
we went up 23%.
We're always full with a waiting list.
Yeah.
Well, there was a question about the waiting list last year, that the waiting list had been exhausted with the fees going up. My question is, were we full last year?
We were full,
Full season?
Yeah, they can only rent it for the season.
Well, that's not true, people come in mid-season.
Oh, no, but they have to take the slip for the entire year, they can't
The
just rent
slip
it
is
for like 2,
open
3
for
weeks.
them from
Yeah.
the date we open the
We
marina.
did, a lot of people came in late, that's the truth,
So
'cause
they,
we had to
so-
go down that
So when
waiting list.
when they came in late, they didn't pay full season, they paid part season, correct?
No, they paid
No,
full
no, they
season.
paid full season,
So if somebody comes in July, they pay full season?
Yeah,
yeah.
'Cause the
We-
slip is
if we get to
theirs to
July,
use
then
whether
we have
they're
to.
there or not.
If we've called them, they back pay full season? If you call somebody and say, we have somebody pulled their boat, they sold their boat or whatever, and someone comes in July, you charge them full season?
They gotta pay it
Well,
up
we don't-
front, otherwise
No,
we give
no,
the
someone-
slip to
that's
We
somebody else.
don't
That's what
refund the
we're talking
people that, we've never had that before, where somebody sells in the middle of the year, but if they did, they don't get any money back. We have that slip
Slip
sold
full
from the
season. Okay,
first
that's
week
what
of
I'm
the year.
They've sold in the middle of the year and gotten bigger boats or
Bigger
smaller
boats, that's
boats,
the
but
problem.
but the price stays the same. If
Well,
it's
it
a
shouldn't.
smaller boat, then the price
No,
stays
'cause
the
it's
same.
what-
If it's a bigger boat, then it goes up. They have to
Yeah.
pay the extra money.
Yeah, like, for instance, we'll
Well,
ask
they have to
them
come
to
in with
pay
their
the difference
insurance.
per foot.
They have to come in with their insurance and everything.
Oh, that's all
So
beforehand,
But I
yeah.
mean, if they change the boat, they gotta come in with their new insurance. and
Oh, yeah, we won't allow them to do that, but if they come in with a 5-foot bigger boat, we charge them the difference.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you rent out the end caps this year too?
We did. It was, like I said, it was a good year, it was 23% up, we were 275,000, that was the ceiling that that's the most money we've collected.
Yep.
So
We have a
we're
great
hoping it's
committee.
healthy. Yeah, good guys, that's one of the best committees we have. Okay, again, beach access, that's the 4x4, 55, it used to be 45, so over the past 3-4 years, the town board has increased it to 55. And again, that's a healthy,
And that's the going rate for everybody? Other towns in comparison?
I don't know if any other town does this.
Okay,
But we went up 4% year over year.
okay.
Yeah, but, I was with the fire chiefs last night and they say part of the problem now with the Wading River Beach is that you have the jetty that comes landward of the high water mark, so
Yeah,
they
it's
can't even
just
get around it.
Less and less beach, I know, it's gonna be a problem soon, we're seeing, Reeves is way almost done, and Wading River the same thing, so it's gonna be hard for these guys to get on there. So, I guess that's
Yeah, so
the problem for a couple years down the road.
this revenue is gonna go down, so we might,
And when we figure out that they can't go on there anymore, but I don't know how many years down the road that would be.
and then we don't offer a veterans discount and emergency workers for beach access?
We do, they're part of the overall, basically we give them a choice, one sticker. So a lot of them do take the beach access sticker, and then the other ones take the parking sticker. But we give them a choice of one sticker,
I remember
on the
we did
town.
that, but what I'm saying is that we're discounting it for veterans and emergency service workers
We
for
don't
the
charge
parking
them.
sticker.
No, we actually.
Oh, they don't get charged at all, so
No, they get to
the
choose
same
one
as
sticker
with
at no
this.
charge.
Okay.
But the other stickers they would have to, if they wanted,
Family or
yeah,
secondary
so-
cars, okay.
but I'll put that on here again, we used to do it separately, but we can put that on here and again, discuss it one more time before you vote on it.
Okay.
Boat launch permit, that's actually been a nice little addition over the last couple of years. We've tweaked it to where we feel it's healthy, and it was very healthy last year.
How much did we?
I think
'cause
you're in those meetings,
That's the first year that we
Jody.
did it, yeah.
Yeah, let me see what we got last year.
Oh,
Yeah, we jumped 27% last year, and that was when we tweaked it, it's 15,575. The first year was 6,625, second year is 12,290, now it's 15,500. So you see the trend going up with that, and this was found money because we never charged for that boat ramp before, just besides
Well,
with
yeah,
the
just,
state.
when
The
did we
state,
take it from the state?
well, Our first year was 2016.
Right, so we didn't have access to charge prior, right?
We couldn't with the
Right,
state.
correct, yeah.
Correct, yeah. And the next page is the fishing permit, only available to residents, it's $10. Now, again, we added that fee.
We don't want non-residents getting our fish.
They can take the ones that wash up, I'm sure, but no, it's a, and then the transient, transient docking, that is for the riverfront. And $25.40, and then if you want it for a week, $150. And we've actually, they can do it online. We've added a feature online that you can print out your permit, and then the information goes to the Bay Constable, from the computer, tells you who's in what spot. Actually, it worked pretty well.
Is that listed on the sign?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
And my other question with this is the transient dock down here. How many ladders are down there? Because, you know, people show up in the boats and then they can't get off the boat onto the walkway there.
I'll check. I know we had a good amount, but we've been looking into it, because East Creek didn't have ladders, we added that. The boat,
But East Creek, where did you add ladders by East Creek?
we added it on the docks, because actually people
At
fell
the
off.
ends.
Yeah, at certain points at the
And-
docks, because, there was one gentleman that fell off,
And he
even though it's
couldn't get
shallow, he
back up,
couldn't get
yeah.
back up,
Where
yeah.
are oh, for the bigger boats over there?
Yeah.
And I
we-
know there's a ladder over at the end of, Meeting House,
Yes.
right
Mhm.
there, so.
We wanna add more just for the safety factor itself. I'm gonna look into the riverfront, I don't know if we attacked that yet.
Yeah, I don't know how many are over there, just if you could take a look how many are over there, because if we're issuing docks and people think they can get out, when it's low, you're pretty
Yeah.
low.
Alright, I'll bring that back for you next week too.
Alright.
And that's it.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Judy? What? Which one is that one?
It's a long meeting for you guys, huh?
Yeah. No,
How's
we
Tim
didn't.
doing, anybody?
We're just having the meeting right now, so.
I'll
Okay,
let you
sorry
know.
about that.
I'll call you later.
Okay, thanks.
I guess there's a big question as to whether we should continue to rent out the building, and if we do.
Well, you're gonna need to talk louder, I can tell.
Okay, if we do rent
Now,
it out.
I haven't heard that, whether we should continue to rent it out or not.
Well, you and I, we've actually spoken about it, and I said, we talked about the wear and tear on the dining room.
Okay.
I don't mind the auditorium.
Okay.
The dining room does, and this goes hand in hand with me wanting to hire rather than call-in or one of Ray's park attendants come in, if there's an event, hire somebody as a custodian watchman, because the way we do it now is the building doesn't get cleaned at night, you can come in the next day and the bathrooms are, so there's a lot in play. These rates,
Can I just, how often do we rent out that building currently?
it's more and more frequent because
So
of
it's a nice-
showers and
Beautiful
things,
building.
yeah.
So, okay,
These rates have existed since we opened the building in 2002.
okay.
Like when we had the erase racism, there was nobody there at the end of the night to clean the bathroom, so the
Right,
next
there's
morning
no
when they
one,
come
right.
in, or
Yeah,
the
it puts the
seniors come
burden
in,
on
then
the
it's,
person that has to
or
clean it,
whoever,
yeah.
whatever event, not
Yeah,
specifically
so we
referring to
figured if
that
we could
one.
hire with that title,
There were a lot of
part-time
people that came
custodian, they can do both.
And just out of
It was good.
curiosity, how often do you rent the dining room versus the auditorium? Are they both in demand, or?
No,
Okay.
the dining room definitely.
And how often is the auditorium rented?
I wouldn't even say it's once a month.
Periodically.
We were giving it out to, it was free for years, and they stopped it this year, they have to go somewhere else. The Suffolk County EMS would meet there once a month for training, but they were the only regulars.
Okay, so, and then the dining room, how often is that rented?
It's really picked up, I would say every weekend there's at least one event there.
But no alcohol, right?
No, we stopped that a few
We
years
used
back.
to
We
have
just- Yeah, we did.
That was an experiment.
You know, it's
You know
still,
what, that's
when
one of
you
the
stop
good
it and they
ones.
go out to the cars and they're drinking out in the parking lot, you know, there's a way
Yeah.
around it, but it did curtail.
But that's one of the things that the Moose and the VFW and the American Legion were, having a problem with, is that we were competing with them, renting their spaces, because we were allowing alcohol at parties and events at our facility, which we don't allow that on our parks or so why would we allow that in the facility? So I thought we
Well, we
stopped that, but I
actually
just.
had weddings back in the beginning.
You still have
Yeah.
weddings there sometimes, right?
Not typically, because it's non-alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Okay, just wanna
and
make sure.
generally, how many
Don't wanna
people,
compete with the
I mean,
Moose. or the
Some of that should be based on how many people generally come to these events.
Oh, I never look, I can't answer that.
I mean, some of the fee should be based on, I
Yeah,
think
that's
should be
fine.
based on the amount. I mean, if you have 50 people versus 250
Right.
people, I think that
Well,
requires.
there is a limit, did I give you the full, I have two, no, only one, I'm sorry, the whole, that gives the limit, there's a 180 people limit. We've never gotten close to that, though.
But I mean, okay.
It's like a tier system.
That was the
Laura,
whole
something like that.
contract,
Sweet
years ago, we
16 with
worked
hundred
with.
and fifty, that's
Yeah,
messier.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever gone even close to that,
And generally they run for the 4 hours, or generally they're
Yeah.
more than 4 hours?
yes. So Ray and I were talking about this, I know the rates are really under, the going rate locally. So maybe changing it, proposing $125 an hour.
We all charge 100 for GYCC, but that's a nicer facility, so we thought maybe jumping it up to 125.
Yeah, and then, non-resident 150 an hour.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because you know what, it's,
I would have at least a 2-hour minimum though, because there's no way somebody's getting in and out of event with setup.
Even 3 hours, because you don't even do a shower in 2 hours.
We do a 4-hour minimum with
or
GYCC.
Sweet 16, or,
Yeah,
We do 4 with GYCC, 4-hour minimum.
I think that's good.
Okay.
Those are good
We adopted
changes.
that out of Port Jefferson, that they do a 4-hour minimum. I believe Brookhaven does, that's how I got the 4-hour minimum.
Alright, so the minimum fee would be $500 for a rental
right.
at the senior center.
at the senior center and the dining
And
hall.
then a permanent person who would oversee the events and clean the building.
Well,
We have an
I mean,
ideal,
do you need, I mean, if you have 75 people versus 180 people, I think that your fee should reflect that if you need to do an additional staff. So if you have under 100 people, or under 75 people, the $500, but if you have over 75 people, you have to pay for an additional person to come there, if it's not just for cleanup.
It's the
I
same
mean,
bathroom
it's-
cleaning and the same,
are you saying have more than one person there for the night, or just bringing somebody
Well, that's what
extra
I'm
to
saying,
clean?
I'm asking you, I mean, if you have 175 people there versus 150 people there, is the amount of staff time more intense than if you have 75 people?
I wouldn't say so. I
No,
mean,
you
you still
think
have to
it's the
clean
same
the
one
floor
way or
and
the
clean
other?
the
Okay.
bathrooms, yeah.
counting number of people that are there and then being accountable for that, I mean, it's just, it's one time you clean the bathroom, no matter how dirty it is, whether it's
Could
one,
be the same person extra time.
I don't know.
My other question is, do they use the kitchen?
No.
Okay, no,
Not anyone we didn't know.
what does that mean?
No, I mean, like, no outsiders use the kitchen ever.
So,
If we have an event there that we sponsor, yes.
but then you're not paying rental fee, you don't fall into this at all,
That's true.
right?
You're right,
So
yeah.
any, I mean, if somebody's having
What
a,
we did allow, Laura, is that if they needed kitchen to heat something, they could use a small kitchen down at the end of the hall.
okay, but not the
big-
commercial
right.
kitchen, okay, that's what I'm asking, that's what I'm
Yeah, 'cause
asking.
I mean,
So nobody can cater an event and use the
Right.
commercial kitchen there, it's only the small little, okay.
Cause the kitchen is under strict guidelines with the health department too, so you don't want anybody coming in
Yeah.
there.
You don't wanna mess around with the kitchen staff either,
No.
when they come.
Oh, no, and
Remember
their
Annie?
spatula's
We do give them
missing,
nice stuff.
forget it.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So you wanna do 125 an hour with a 4-hour minimum? And then 150 for non-residents?
Mhm.
I mean, I would do more for non-residents, because you're
Wow.
saying that there's wear and tear on the building? Do you feel there's a lot of wear and tear on this for non-residents?
You mean more than the 150?
More than the
An hour?
150? I mean, are you encouraging non-residents to come in and use the
No,
building, or?
and I don't even know, I'd have to look back to see if we've even rented it over the years to non-residents,
I mean,
it's not typical. It's
Right,
not a
so if you
typical
don't really,
rental.
I would change it to 125 for residents, 175, 200 an hour, 4-hour minimum for non-residents. I mean, because we really want our residents using the facility. I mean, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, especially she says that nobody's really using it from out of town
Yeah,
anyway,
I-
so we'll really scare them away.
Well, she's also,
they want it,
you're
we'll reap the
saying, but
benefits from
you're
it,
also
yeah.
saying you prefer them not to, that you prefer it to be used just for residential
Yeah,
use,
you want the
because
building
the
looking
building.
good for the seniors.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
there's work, yeah.
You wanna just add it to this resolution? We'll just put
Yeah,
your,
we could
what you
put it
wanna
all
say?
together.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
And then the other thing was,
Do
we
you,
had the
I'm sorry,
issue
do you
with-
wanna put also in the fee schedule, somebody, or is it gonna be how are you doing for the person to come in? You wanna call them up something particular, do you wanna work with Meg for a call-in for the, to cover events?
I'd like to hire somebody so that every time we have somebody, it would be a part-timer, so there's no benefits.
Yeah, but you're running events that much that you're having a full, 20 hours a
Well,
week to
it's
cover
event-
these events?
It's not just for the events, it's all the programs that,
Well, then that's a
Recreation
whole
has in
different,
there.
that's a whole different
So rather
ballgame,
than,
so put that job description together.
okay,
And then present that as a separate job description,
Yeah,
and
we-
part of the duty details will be this. Hours
Oh,
for call,
okay.
Yeah,
that's
we're
what, that's
working
what I'm
with
saying.
Meg on that
That's
to
something,
kinda
that's something
revamp it a little
completely
bit.
different, okay,
Okay.
I understand what you're saying then with that, okay.
I'm kinda fussy about who I leave there at night, seriously, I just don't like somebody who doesn't know the buildings and all the room, and all, it's just better. Anyway, the other thing was rather than have a call-in person, every time we do the Meals on Wheels, or that we need someone, or a doctor's person, like we did this past year, hiring a part-time, as we spoke about, and getting away from the call-in, part-time senior aide, so we can use them wherever we need them.
Well, I think that you guys are both in the same building now, I think this is an ongoing discussion, we've talked about this quite a bit, with the call-ins and how they're being utilized, and the job descriptions that they're working under. I think the two of you need to present that as a comprehensive,
Yeah, that'll come with that
proposal.
salary resolution.
So if you could do that together and then bring that back to the board, I think that would probably be the most efficient thing to do, so that we're,
Yeah, we're working with Meg on that to kind of revamp it a little bit,
Yeah.
to make it sense a little bit more.
yes.
And also, I'm gonna pull out my, cost savings projections
Because we
that
really
you guys
struggle when
provided
somebody's
a
out of
few
the picture.
years ago.
Oh, I have
When
that.
you were consolidating the
I
departments.
just did that the other day.
And to see exactly how much we have saved and
We're
whether or
doing
not
good.
we're gonna
We're
be
doing good.
absorbing it by hiring new part-time employees, so.
I could bring that, I mean, I'm not done with it yet, but I've been breaking it down.
Which I think is
Okay.
also something that we need to start letting the community know for registration, that the registration is taking place at Shade Tree.
Oh, yeah, well,
for
they
the-
know that.
For the before that, we had Stosky Park open. Stosky Park isn't open, the registration's happening at Shade Tree. I think we had also spoken about possibly having a satellite over in Wading River.
Yeah.
For people to register at, and I think, you let me know when you feel like that you would like to address that a little bit more, and we can move forward with that. I think to have that, the two offices for registration, obviously Wading River would have a limited time
Be
date
nice
for
to have it over
registration,
there.
but I think that it's something that would be beneficial.
Let's give it a shot, anyway.
We talked about at the Henry Pfeiffer Center, right? For the registrations for the Wading River people?
We also talked
That-
about
that
over
could
by
be a
Little Flower
option.
over there,
Is
I
there
don't
an
know if you
office
get
there?
too
about
many,
sharing an office,
About
Pfeiffer,
sharing
I
an
wouldn't
office
think
with
there'd
Little
be many
Flower?
to register.
on the main road, yeah. They have an
I think we
office
used to do it there, but.
Who?
Little Flower.
Oh, so Little Flower would share their office space with us to have a person in there to,
A satellite office for program registration.
so that would be staffed all the time?
No, that's exactly what we're saying, I'm asking Ray to come up with some
Help Waiting River.
to
Target
help Wading
hours,
River,
yeah,
so if you
yeah.
have target hours on Friday, Saturday morning, something like that, a limited schedule over there, but this way it would alleviate, just, as something that might be,
You're probably only talking about one weekend or 2 weekends, right? Because then registration dies down totally.
It does, and we,
you
we'll
guys
put
know
it
how it
during
works, so
hours
you put
that's,
together what it is you think
that we're
that's
closed.
necessary.
It'd be like a twofold, if we're closed over in, like, say at night hours, Wading River can get the night hours, and if anybody wants to come there, because they didn't get there during the day.
Ray,
we can do
but
something like
before we
that.
confuse everybody with everything, you guys figure out what it is you think the need is, and then we can
Yeah,
present that
this
as
is
the
just
need, and
talking
then
out
we
loud.
can,
If there is a need, as a matter of fact, your staff, when people are calling to register for programs now, if they're from Wading River, you might wanna ask them.
We have
you
actually
know.
broken down, by registration where they live, so
And,
we can put a
and
report
who
for
would
that.
benefit from
Yeah.
having that satellite office there rather than coming to, the senior center? Cause that's something that we discussed when we consolidated, was the concern of the Wading River residents and that they would have to go all the way into Aquabog to go and register for class.
and I also think for program promotion, I mean, you brought that up also, that
We'd like to,
that you'd like to expand some of the programs and to have access with some of the programs also, so that might be a foray into being
Yeah,
able to do
no,
that.
I agree.
Alrighty, thank you guys
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Sure. Let me just see what else, if we have just one more item or
If
two.
DC one, right?
Oh, yeah,
Is the
okay.
only thing.
Jeff's been waiting 4 hours.
All right.
You guys can start without me, I kinda know what you're gonna say.
You can start without me, too.
All right, Larry, we'll take a 5-minute break.